You too, Kelly.
Kelly,
Thank
let
you.
me know if you need me back, Thomas.
Okay, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. You're good to go.
Thanks very much. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board for December 15th, 2021. That is the Town of East Hampton Planning Board. This is a meeting that was not originally in our calendar, but we needed to add it because we had a bunch of things to do in 2021. But this will be our last meeting of 2021, and while I have the full amount of people before us, I would like to again thank the folks at MTV for MTV. God almighty, one letter back, LTV. Folks at LTV for the hard work of keeping us on air throughout the pandemic, and we look forward to the day when we won't need to thank them for that hard work.
We're here.
Also to the planning department staff for your hard work getting out there and reviewing all these applications and giving us the information we need to make the decisions that we make, and of course to our planning board staff. And I'm looking on the screen here for Jody, Jay Walker. So thank you, Jody, and thank you, Nora, for your hard work on our behalf and for, for going above and beyond the call so many times that we asked you to. And of course, my personal thanks to my fellow board members. This has been a very, very busy year. We've done a lot of good work, a lot of hard work, and I thank you for always being willing to do more. So with that, we've got 5 matters on for 2 for sub-waiver review, 3 for site plan review. We have a few matters on for regular work session, and sometime between now and midnight, earlier than that, I hope, we will be finished. But we have we did need to get a few things in before the end of the year. So the first matter we have is the Pamela Morgan lot line modification. Will, you're the planning department on that. Randy, you've got the planning board on that. And I apologize for not knowing off the top of my head who is it who's here on behalf of this applicant. Oh, Dan, right? Mr. Weaver? It's
yes,
yours?
That's correct. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, with that, where is it? Will, looking for you on this video. Go right ahead.
Thanks, Em. I'm just going to share screen here. Okay, so this is an application to formalize a lot line modification that was done by deed in 1982 for Pamela Morgan, who owns both lots. The parcels are situated in Springs on Old Stone Highway and are zoned A5 residence. Lot 1, which you can see here, is currently improved with a 2-story residence, as well as a garage and an accessory structure. The much larger Lot 2, as you can see, is mostly vacant, except for the southeastern corner, which is currently improved with a 1-story single-family residence. This existing survey, prepared by George Walbridge Surveyors, is a bit confusing in that what it's attempting to convey regarding the proposed it's not clear what it's attempting to convey regarding the proposed application. It is not clear whether it is meant to represent the existing state of the property or the proposed modification, and it also lacks information such as the zoning of the 2 parcels and the delineation between existing and proposed lot area and clearing calculations. A revised version of the survey that specifically illustrates the proposed transfer of lot area, as well as the aforementioned data regarding the zoning, existing proposed lot area, and clearing calculations should be submitted in order for the application to move forward. Also in the application, the deed is referred to from 1982 that originated the proposed lot line modification that is being proposed to be formalized here now. The applicant has not submitted a copy of the deed to the planning department, and the department requests a copy of the deed be submitted to convey a better idea of what the proposed lot line modification entails in addition to a revised survey. Both houses in the 2 lots are designated as historic landmarks due to being historically owned by the Miller family, as outlined in the table of historic landmarks, special historic landmarks, and historic districts in Chapter 255 of the Town Code. This means that they are subjected to the attached standards and criteria of the town code, but it's not relevant to this current proposed lot line modification, but should be taken into consideration for future applications on site, as well as in terms of whether any future proposed lot line modifications will compromise the historic area. In conclusion, the application is incomplete, pending the application submitting a revised survey that more accurately depicts the proposed extension lot area, the zoning of the parcels, and the delineation between existing and proposed lot area and clearing calculations. And in addition to a revised survey, the applicant should also submit a copy of the deed that originated said proposed lot line modification.
Okay. In that case, thank you very much, Will, for that. Mr. Weaver, you have anything you would like to add on that?
Sure. First, thank you, Will, for your report. There's a couple things I want to touch on quickly. One is that Pamela Morgan does not own both lots. We did put the application in with just Pamela Morgan's name on it, and the reason being is because Lot 2 is actually in probate right now. One of the owners of Lot 2 recently passed away, and the family was not sure who had the legal right to sign the application. So we're trying to clear that issue up, but we want to go ahead and get this before the board because Pamela Morgan has been waiting quite a while for, not to the board's fault, but I'll give you a little backstory of how we got to this situation. So Pamela Morgan put in a application to Suffolk County Health Department for a septic system upgrade over a year ago now. And after some review by the health department, they came back with the fact that the lot lines that we showed on her survey don't match the 1981 tax map. After some investigation, I did find that, yes, there was a lot line modification that was done by deed in 1982, and that's the deed that Will referenced in his report. In 1982, the two properties under different ownership at the time swapped equal amounts of land to make what is now Lot 1, Pamela Morgan's lot, a more regular shaped lot, and allowed her predecessor in title to put a small addition on the rear or west side of the house that's on the property now. So that's kind of the genesis of how we got here. So in order to satisfy Suffolk County Health Department, one of the conditions, we have to go before them for a lot line modification approval, and in that they need approvals from the town of East Hampton. So what I started doing after that is I did some research, and it turns out that in a certain way, the town of East Hampton has already acknowledged the lot line modification, because in 1986, they issued a building permit based on the new lot lines, and in 1988, a certificate of occupancy based on the new lot lines for the addition that I mentioned before. So I had a meeting with John Jelnicki to try to figure out how best to clear this up. And Mr. Jelnicki's suggestion was that we go before the planning board in order to, even though he agreed, he felt like in essence, the town had, more or less agreed to the lot line modification by issuing the building permit. He still felt it was best for, this issue not to come up again in the future, to get this approved as a lot line modification by the planning board. So that's the reason I'm not showing a swap of area on the map, because for all intents and purposes, these are the property lines that the two, are owned and fee title by the two property owners. So I didn't want to confuse the fact that these lines are, legal deeded out lines between the two parties. And so I kind of approached this one a little bit differently. Other than that, the only thing I want to point out is the clearing calculations, I believe, are on the map down towards the bottom left of the drawing. We have coverage clearing and lot coverage and clearing calculations for each lot as they exist now. And that's my.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, thank you very much for that additional information. Randy, would you like to chime in here?
Well, so I've seen other transfers, subdivisions by deed that were done. In other words, what people did, they just drew up a deed and took money from somebody and gave them a deed to the property. But once once the law had been changed and planning boards had to approve subdivisions and lot lines, those deed transfers, at least the ones I'm familiar with, were considered illegal. And I think that's what the health department is saying. There is no legal subdivision or lot line modification of this property. And so you should go back to the planning board to get one. Or even it's just good housekeeping to get it done. So I think my big question is, if the lot lines were changed, well, I don't even know what we began with, Dan, here. Were there two houses on one lot and there was no lot line at all around the bigger house?
No, they were always two separate parcels. The best way to describe it is that the southerly line of lot 1 was further north. Basically, lot 1 was a more irregular shape. It was a very skinny lot. It was actually sorry, I said that wrong. The southerly line of lot 1 was further south. It was closer to the house on lot 2. And the rear line, the westerly line of lot 1 was further east towards the road. So it was a very skinny lot that ran, long ways parallel to Old Stone Highway. And so that's where the lot lines were moved. And in 1982, they reconfigured the lots to make lot 1 a little bit more buildable.
So the original lot was by deed before that was illegal. So they deeded out that first skinny parcel.
No, I think it happened prior to zoning. I don't know the date of the original. Obviously these at some point in history, yes, these were one parcel, but that is many years in the past. And it was pre-zoning when the lots were originally split out.
Right. Okay. So I guess my question is, since we normally have to have the approval or at least the name on an application of both parties in a lot line modification, and if this is really going back and fixing that, wouldn't we have to have the one that's in probate, the owner that's in probate, wouldn't we have to have them on this application before we can approve anything?
Yes, I don't disagree with that. And we are working towards that. They were trying to figure out who could legally sign for the family, the heirs. And they are aware of the situation and are willing to participate, but nobody felt comfortable putting their signature down until they knew if they were allowed to sign. But yes, the idea was at least to get this before the board to start to review so that we could follow up with the signatures from the second property owner.
So there's no executor appointed yet?
As of when I put the application in, no. I'm hoping by now that there is.
No.
And it just happened. Literally, the occupant of the house had passed away within a couple weeks of finalizing the application. It was very recent when it happened, when I put the application in. I think it was October.
So what do we need to do? Put this on the shelf until we know for sure that there's an executor? Is that what we need to do here? I mean, if you can't go forward, if you don't have letters yet, how do we, and you can't do what you want to do. You can't even sign the deeds, right?
Well, there's no deeds to sign. I mean, the deeds are the deeds that exist now. So that part's not an issue. It's more legalizing it in the sense of, I don't want to say legalizing because I don't know that that's the correct word, but it's more formalizing this in a result that would,
I guess you want a map. I mean, you want a map, and that means, and I'm signing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, other question, Dan, is that this is a 25,000 square foot lot and a 9.6 acre lot, and it seems like normally when we do a lot line modification, we try to get the undersized lot to at least meet zoning, which here is 5 acres. So it does seem like we could approve this lot line modification with this 25,000 square foot lot, and then the owner of lot 2 may want to come in and subdivide.
I don't believe lot 2 is subdividable. It's 5 acre zoning, so we don't have enough area in lot 2 to divide that into 2 parcels.
And it's not for me to say, but if you guys are reopening this discussion between the 2 owners, you don't want to make that 25,000 square foot lot a little larger than it is. But I guess
no, because we're not reopening the discussion. We're trying to just formalize, a lot line modification that happened, in 1982. And that the town, and that was what I spoke with Mr. Jolnicki about, is that the town in essence did acknowledge the lot line modification and issuing a building permit on lot 1 after it was after lot line modification happened. And because a lot line modification was done to allow room for an expansion on the house on lot 1. That was the whole purpose of it, I believe. I mean, I don't know. I'm not working for either the owners at the time that did it, but the addition would not have fit on the house without the lot line modification happening. So Mr. Jolnicki did agree.
I'm sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to. I thought you're done. But let me just ask Thomas, because I'm a little concerned about going forward at all, given the position that you are in the surrogates court right now. So Thomas, can you chime in on this?
I mean, yeah, if he says he's talked to John, I haven't been a part of that, but it's here in front of the board now. I think you can give some initial thoughts, but yeah, I mean, as far as approving it or taking any, further steps, I think they would need the, consent of both lot owners. But since it's in front of the board now, and I think Dan said he understands that, so I think the board can give some initial thoughts on what they think of the lot line modification, just with the caveat that it's got to get the consent of the other owner.
Can I, Randy, if you don't have anything else, I'd like to throw it open to the board and see if anybody has any opinion on this. I'm not going around the table, just if anybody has anything they want to say on it. Board.
Well,
no?
I would just want to make sure I understand that this is only to formalize what presently exists. Is that correct?
That would be my point of view. Yes, correct.
Okay. So it's called a lot line modification because that's the rubric under which it fits for our purposes of applying for review. But
it's also what the health department. It's also what the health department would consider it. That's
right. I understand, but it's been like this since 1982. Is that correct? That's correct.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I think Randy makes a good suggestion in that usually we try to make these lots more conforming to the lot size within the residence district that they're in, but this seems like an anomaly to that. So I think you just have to get the probate stuff figured out and then come back and we can take a look again.
Anyone else?
I don't have anything else. I mean, in terms of the configuration of it, it doesn't really.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing. We're just, giving the applicant a sense of where it is likely to go the next time it comes before us. Is anyone else?
Yeah, I think to Kathy's point, I think we are making it more conforming because we're enlarging the smaller lot or recognizing that it has been enlarged. So even though it wouldn't meet current zoning, I do think it's more conforming, and I still think the larger lot could not be subdivided again if I have the acreage right. So I support the application once we get the details, legal details figured out.
Yeah, I also supported Sam. So if the applicant is looking for guidance as to where we stand, in my opinion, I would approve this. It's just a matter of working out the technical details with the planning department. Getting the proper documentation and so forth.
All right. Anyone else? Is that it?
Well, I'll just put in my name and
Hi,
say,
Sam. So
yeah, I mean,
you weren't on my screen.
I too will go along with this as long as everything is legally correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, conforming lots is one of those things we try to accomplish as much as we can. So, all right. All right. Well, Mr. Weaver, I guess you have an idea of where you'll go, and it's just a matter of winding your way through a different governmental entity. So,
Yes.
good luck with that.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next thing we have is Lot 72 LLC, another lot line modification, another one that Will is covering. Ian, you're for the board on this, and I apologize for not knowing who the applicant's representative is on this.
Just to clarify too, this is a minor subdivision, sub-waiver, not a lot line modification.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what it is? Oh, Meyer. You know what? I looked up this Lot 72 LLC.
Yeah,
So,
LLM. And it's Alice Cooley representing them.
Oh, okay. Hello, Ms. Cooley. How are you? Well,
Good evening. Hi, how are you?
How are you? Okay. All right. Will, please take us away on this.
Yes, Sam. This is an application to divide the original parcel into 2 individual lots, as you can see here. The property is Zone B residence. The neighboring lots surrounding the parcel, as you can kind of see on the aerial here, are all B residents and single-family residences. It's located 170 feet from 3 Mile Harbor. The western side of the lot has been historically cleared, with the eastern side uncleared. So, on the survey, the title is currently listed as Map of Lot 72 LLC. The applicant should change the title to Map of Lot 72 LLC Minor Subdivision to reflect the nature of the application. The lots meet the minimum lot area and lot width requirements for B resident zoning district. Setback requirements are not an issue. The lots in the proposed subdivision are generally rectangular in shape. The property was previously subdivided in February 1958 into 2 separate lots as 9 and 11 Oyster Shores Road with no open space or reserved areas. After that original subdivision, the lots were later automatically combined into the one current lot they are today after a swimming pool was built over the property line in October of 1997, with a letter to the owner from the building inspector in March 2000 stating that they would be provided with a new tax map number for the combined lot. In 2014, another letter was sent to the applicant from the building inspector stating that Lot 71, the eastern uncleared portion of the lot, was not a buildable lot at that time, and that the applicant would be required to subdivide the parcel once again in order to build on that portion of the property. They have now demolished that pool that was constructed over the property line, so now they can thusly meet those setback and clearing requirements. There are no steep slopes or unique landforms on the property, as stated before. Setback and clearing requirements seem okay. The property is not within natural resources special permit jurisdiction, but it is located only 170 feet from 3 Mile Harbor. Additionally, according to the records for Hampton Water's Section 1 subdivision, there does not appear to be anything prohibiting further subdivision. However, the planning department does note that the proposed subwaiver is already located in a neighborhood that is already high density under the current circumstances, as again you can see on the aerial here. And that subdividing the parcel would cause only further density in the area, even though noting again this property was previously subdivided. The project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA in Chapter 128 of the Town Code. The Planning Department recommends that the Planning Board declare lead agency. A letter would need to be sent to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, who would have 30 days to proceed. When the applicants come back for the next review, the board could discuss the matter again, and an environmental assessment form would be written up, and then the application would be ready for a public hearing. So in conclusion, the application is conforming in all respects. Once again, all they really need to do is change the title of the survey to reflect its status as a minor subdivision, and then the planning department will find the application complete. But again, noting the high density nature of the neighborhood, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, Ms. Cooley, do you have anything you'd like to add on this?
Good evening, board members, and thank you, Will, for that report. We appreciate you hearing from us tonight. My name is Alice Cooley from Matthews, Kirsten Cooley. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Lot 72 LLC. I don't have much to add since this sub-waiver is conforming in all respects. I would mention that the applicant is presently in the process of trying to get an IA system installed on the house lot, which is shown as Lot 1 on the sub-waiver map. He has a permit from the Suffolk County Health Department, and I think, in a sense that addresses the density issue, and he's just trying to get that installed right now. And that's all I have to add. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Ian, would you like to chime in on this?
Yeah, I think this is well, I guess there's a little bit of a complicated history, but ultimately I think this is a fairly straightforward application that it meets all of our dimensional regulations. And so I support the application. In terms of SECRA, I do think we should declare lead agency. So I so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried.
The other comment or question, I guess, for Will is there's a question in our memo that we should make a negative declaration. Isn't that premature at this point, or?
It is a bit. However, I think we didn't really word it exactly as it should have been. But, with the provision that they make the map name notation, that they correct that the application is otherwise complete. When you do have a complete application, that's when it's time to make a negative declaration. But yeah, you need to have the other involved agency here, as noted in the memo, is the health department, and they have 30 days to reply once you declare lead agency, which you just did. I can't imagine that they're going to object to that. But I guess really what we were looking for was, if this is complete the next time it comes back, we would prepare an EAF part 2 and 3. And we're just wondering whether or not you would want that to be a negative declaration.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm in favor of sending the letter, obviously, but it seems like we have to wait to hear back, at least officially, and then see the EAF part 2 and 3. I agree with you, Eric. I don't anticipate any problems there. And at that time, if everything goes as I expect, we do that stuff. At this point, I'll stick with declaring lead agency, and we'll take the next step next time.
Very well. Does anyone have anything they want to add besides declaring lead agency on this?
I don't, I would just say that here we are a certain number of years after Hampton Waters. And, this applicant, as everyone has said, meets all the requirements. And it's appreciated that they're doing an IA system. I'm just wondering what the clearing would be allowed here. I don't know, if the applicant were willing, the moving, having the house a little further back from the edge of the harbor and possibly not clearing as little as possible would be a good thing, but that's all I have to say.
Well, we have, I'm sorry.
I had some similar concerns that, while it's not specifically in the Harbor Protection Overlay District, it is pretty close to it. It's just 25 feet outside of the need for a natural resources special permit. It does meet all the criteria, but I would also ask that the applicant think of pushing the building back and, making a building envelope that's is reasonably, northwest of that southwest. It's not exactly southerly, it's not a straight compass point, but push it back as much as they could. I'm glad they're putting the II system in. That's great, but and it's great that we require them now. But I think that would really be a contribution to the neighborhood and to the clean water and to 3 Mile Harbor, which has its challenges.
Well, those issues aside, assuming we get a revised map with a proper title, is it ready for us to schedule a public hearing?
Yes.
Oh, I think so too. All right. Ms. Cooley, I guess, make a phone
I'll get
call.
you a revised map.
I'm sorry?
I'll get you a revised map.
Take care of the paperwork, and we'll see you again.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so now we will move on to site plan reviews. We have the first one is Montauk Sunset Cottages, and we have by special appointment Brian Frank. Will be reporting on that one. And so we have Brian, and I apologize, the applicant, Ms. Scarlato, are you here for the applicant on that? And Ms. Bistrian, you're here on that?
Yes.
Very well. And Randy, you're here for the planning board. So Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody. Brian Frank on behalf of the Planning Department. I have an aerial photo of the property up on the screen. Just to remind you, we've discussed this twice before, most recently in March. This is a property located on East Lake Drive in the southern portion of Lake Montauk, with a mix of non-conforming and conforming uses. And the application has been a redevelopment and the addition of new structures on the property. The northern half of the property has a cluster of cottages on it that predate zoning. They go back at least to the 50s, maybe earlier, and they represent a pre-existing non-conforming commercial use on the property. The southern portion of the property has a single-family residence on it. It's a residential zone. The residence is a conforming use on the property. The application involves the reconstruction of all of the cottage units, the demolition of the existing residence and the construction of a new residence, and new accessory structures, a swimming pool, a number of accessory structures located in the southeast corner of the property. I'm going to move to the survey now. There is some historic coastal structures on the property. There's a dilapidated bulkhead along the southern property line, somewhat of a rubble groin along that extends from the shoreline in that area. A timber groin that is also a little bit dilapidated in the middle of the property. And I'll move over to the survey now because that's what represents the improvements. So we had discussed this back in March. All of the cottages are proposed to be reconstructed. 3 of the units are proposed to be relocated. The units, 3 buildings, 4 units located along the closest to the wetland in the northern portion of the property are proposed to be shifted south, farther away from a freshwater wetland located just about along the northern property line. 2 of the cottages were pretty straightforward in their relocation. The third is the double cottage, cottage 4 and 5 as it's been labeled, is proposed to be shifted south and attached to cottage 2. When the board had discussed this back in March, they were amenable generally to the relocation of the cottages and requested that the combined cottage 4 and 5 maintain the existing wetland setbacks along the shoreline. They've come pretty close to that. They have proposed the western limits of construction in line with cottage 2. The wetland kind of dips in a little bit to the north here, so it's actually about 2.5 feet closer to the shoreline than the existing cottage 2 rather. It's a minor reduction in setbacks. It's not exactly what the board asked for when they said keep the wetland setbacks, but I wanted to point that out in the memo. But I do think it is more of a minor point compared to other issues with the property. It's a pretty ambitious project. It's a complete redevelopment of up to 17 structures. Whether this unit is constructed in the location proposed or set back a little bit, I think is subordinate to bigger planning and bigger issues on the property. The parking and driveway layout has been revised, and it shows up with the most contrast on the landscaping plan. So if it's acceptable to the board, I'd like to bring that up instead because it's in color. There's just a little better contrast there.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So this is, there had originally been, there's one access into the property now. North is to the left side of the screen here. So the parking went north. It kind of dead ended a little bit, and there was some concern from the fire marshal's office that the emergency vehicular access was inadequate. It has been revised to be a semicircular access. It's 20 feet wide as required, and the fire marshal has expressed in writing that it's acceptable for emergency vehicle access. The property is non-conforming to the number of parking spaces required on the property. It had been historically. The application is proposing to bring that into compliance with 20 proposed spaces in a combination of both graveled parking spaces and grass pavers. And that's why this really does show up, especially on people's computer screens, just better contrast than the survey or even the drainage plan, and that's why I wanted to use it. There are 2 ADA compliant spaces. They're not labeled on the landscaping plan, but they're, if I'm remembering correctly, they're between cottage 7 and 8 in this location. If you do want to see them on the on one of the other plans, I'm happy to bring that up. One area of the one element of the project that the planning department had some concerns about was a proposal to reconstruct what had been an asphalt access down to the shoreline. It was asphalt at one time. There are patches of asphalt on it now. If you go to the property, you'll see that it's a combination of dirt and gravel much more than asphalt. The application has been improved by eliminating its reconstruction and proposing its replacement with what has been described as a light use grass vehicular path. The planning department would still like to see this eliminated. Small, shallow draft, non-motorized vessels like canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, sunfishes don't really require vehicular access to launch. That's not something that we see certainly on residential properties in conjunction with residential development, and it would be an environmental improvement to eliminate that from the application. Lastly, it was raised in the last memorandum that the parking is proposed up near the street, kind of clustered in a parking lot, but the cottages are kind of scattered throughout the northern portion of the property. And if there is going to be any pathways from the parking area to the cottages, it would be better to get that to incorporate that as part of the site plan now, eliminate the need for kind of an unnecessary modification down the road. It seems logical that with a kind of a historic, a layout that I don't want to say random, but it's hard to, I'm sure there was a rationale into how the cottages were laid out back in the day, but it's not as ordered or structured as you would expect modern development to be. The separations, the distances between the buildings are all different. Their orientations are a little bit different, but it does seem to make sense that some type of lighted pathway would make sense at some point on the property, and it is reasonable to encourage that incorporation now.
Okay. Well, it's quite a comprehensive survey. Thank you very much for that, Brian.
There's a lot more. I'm sorry.
I apologize. I thought you were I was looking at the last line. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. The revegetation plan has been improved significantly in a couple of important areas. The planning department would characterize the buffer that's been proposed adjacent to the wetland to the north of the property as exemplary, both in terms of its species composition and planting density. And I think the reduction in clearing that's been proposed, or the replacement in clearing, I should say, that's been proposed in between the residence and East Lake Drive is of similar high quality. There is some concern that I have. I've seen a lot of revegetation plans implemented, and I've seen a lot of the lesser ones kind of degrade over the years for a couple of different reasons. So in these islands that are proposed around the cottages, you can see where the woody vegetation is and fairly large areas of herbaceous vegetation next to the lawn. Grassy and herbaceous areas don't stay that way over time. Ecological succession means that woody vegetation comes into those areas. You hope that it's native, but the truth is that a lot of these areas do get colonized by invasive species. The best revegetation plans are low to no maintenance once they're implemented. And I think that keeping these grassy areas separated from the lawn area is going to be problematic over time. And I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. Some of the herbaceous vegetation, there's a lot of common milkweed proposed along the shoreline. This property happens to have a lot of common milkweed on it, which is a very important species for pollinators. So there is some room for some of that in the revegetation plan, but especially around the more intensely occupied areas of the property, I'm going to suggest to the board that it's impractical. I do want to point out that the overall clearing is only slightly reducing. It's at 107,000 square feet now. It's going down to a little over 106,000 square feet. And there is 31,000 square feet of temporary clearing that's proposed. The property is very non-conforming to clearing now. If this were a vacant property, it would be limited to a little bit less than 30,000 square feet of clearing. So the temporary clearing of 31,000 square feet would require a variance from the clearing restrictions of the Harbor Protection Overlay District if an equal area isn't revegetated before that area needs to be cleared. I do want to discuss the coastal structures a little bit. There was the application originally had proposed to reconstruct the bulkhead and the groin and construct a dock in the northern portion of the property. Those elements of the application have been eliminated, and that's an improvement. There were a lot of issues with the reconstruction of those structures. They were outlined in earlier memos. I'm not going to repeat them now. But I do want to point out that the condition of these structures is, it is pretty dilapidated. This, this is a couple of shots of the bulkhead. This is the southern wall of the bulkhead. This is the kind of the neighboring property to the south. But you could tell from these photos, the bulkhead is in disrepair. There's a lot of fill behind it. It is structurally failing. It's collapsing. It's an aesthetic. It's not good aesthetically. It's an environmental hazard as the bulkhead continues to fail, and this material behind it is only going to fall into Lake Montauk, and it's a safety hazard with areas of void space behind the bulkhead. The applicant has recognized, the uniqueness and the beauty of this area in a lot of their materials in the past. And I just want to say that the removal of these structures would be an enormous benefit to the shoreline of Lake Montauk. It would significantly improve the coastal habitat to naturalize the shoreline, remove these foreign materials from the property. And it seems that leaving it as is it doesn't really make sense because of the safety and environmental hazards associated with it in the future. If you're going to have people on this property, you certainly don't want them walking behind a bulkhead like this. So you really do have a choice between reconstructing them or removing them, more than it's reasonable to just ignore it. And I think it would be a significant benefit to incorporate that into the redevelopment of the property. In the last review, the board asked for a little bit more engineering details, and the information that was submitted applied to the geothermal well field. There is a geothermal field proposed to provide geothermal heat to the residents. It is proposed just almost on line with the swimming pool, about 100 feet from the shoreline. The planning department would encourage its relocation. You can see where the service line comes out of the residence and then down along the shoreline. Relocating that to the eastern portion of the property, farther away from the shoreline, would just reduce the extent of excavation and grading associated with the project, especially in proximity to the shoreline. We don't have any bird's eye view of the grading on the property, but PW Grosser did provide this profile of the grading loops, which shows that there's about a 2-foot change in elevation from what I assume is the easternmost loop field to the westernmost. There is a change to the residents, and the footprint of the residence has changed a little bit. The footprint has increased. The square footage has increased as defined by the town code. It's gone up from about 6,200 square feet to 6,700 square feet. There doesn't appear to be an increase in the room count associated with that. Our gross floor area calculations require that double ceiling heights be counted twice towards GFA. There's about a 1,400 square foot cathedral ceiling or double ceiling height in the residence. So there is an increase in building coverage that has gone up. It's about 300 square feet away from the maximum coverage allowed on the property. But I wanted to clarify that square footage increases at least contributed to that double ceiling height, or contributed to by that double ceiling height. In that March discussion that we had, there was a discussion about how the property would be used, and the application has included a narrative kind of describing the vision of the owner, how the property would be used. Again, the cottages are a commercial use. The residence doesn't ever seem that it was part of the commercial operation of the property, and for it to remain a conforming use in the future, it really wouldn't be part of the commercial operation of the property. One of the ways to help ensure that is a covenant stating as such on the property. As the board knows, permits run with the land, not with the ownership. So it may be that the owners operate this property for decades in the artist retreat that they envision, but it's absolutely 100% legal for them to sell it in any amount of time period. And a subsequent owner is likely to have a different vision, and there should be some clarity as to what is and what is not permitted in terms of uses on the property. Just a couple of the couple of minor lighting details are still missing. I really think they're very secondary to some of the issues that I've mentioned in the presentation. And I do think that this is a property that would benefit from some type of construction protocol. There are up to 17 structures that are being reconstructed or constructed on the property. The cottages are a reconstruction. The demo of the main house, the new residence will be new. Obviously, the swimming pool will be new. These accessory buildings are essentially new, even though they're replacing things that are shown on the CO as buildings. But if you've been to the property, you've seen that they're kind of held up by tarps and 4x4s. Whether this is 3 years construction, 5 years of construction, is the residence getting constructed before the cottages? Most of these structures are going to be served by one sanitary system. I think, again, would bring some clarity and help prevent inadvertent non-compliance with any conditions of a site plan or special permit issued by the board in the future. And that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Sorry about getting ahead of you before, Brian. I've been reading a little fast, a little too fast. But thank you, because it's comprehensive and it's a big parcel and it's an important one and it deserves the treatment that it's getting in terms of details, the attention to details. Ms. Bistrian?
I just have a question for Brian. Could I just ask him quickly?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah,
go right ahead.
it's an easy one. Brian, is there any way for you to, I don't see this on the survey, but as you've pointed out, it's a very busy survey. Where is the property line dividing the residents from the southerly lot from the northerly lot?
Well, I don't believe there is one. This is one property, although it's comprised of two tax map parcels. So really,
parcels. So
the only place that shows up would be, these are the two tax map parcels.
Yeah. Okay.
But to my understanding, this is one property.
Right. Okay.
And before
we
Britain
just
gets
listed
going,
two tax map parcels.
I'm sorry.
It's just listed as two tax map parcels.
Correct.
Okay. All right. We
And
probably.
Britain, if there's anything you want on the screen during your presentation, please just say so.
Okay. Thanks.
With Kathy's question there, both lots are in the same ownership?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Bistrian, floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll stick with the aerial. That's fine for now. Good evening, Chairman Kramer and members of the board. As you know, this is not the first review of the application, so I'll try and be brief and comment on the items that Brian raised. I guess I'll start with the subdivision question because I think so. At a certain point, the owner went to the town of East Hampton and tried to subdivide the property into two lots. That subdivision was never completed and not recognized, but for whatever reason, it was filed at the county. So the county records are inconsistent from the town records. But in terms of, and Tiffany can jump in on this if she wants, but in terms of the legal existence of the parcel, it is one property, and the Suffolk County gave it two tax map numbers. But for the purpose of the town, it was never properly subdivided. So the first item we discussed was the cottage relocation. That was something that the board had suggested to give a little bit of a buffer to that northern wetland. What that necessitated, which I know the survey is very busy and this may not have been abundantly clear, but that necessitated additional clearing. There had been a discussion that our initial proposal required zero clearing, and we were told somewhere in the process that we should maximize wetland setbacks, even if it meant additional clearing. So we chose to get that environmental buffer as opposed to not doing more clearing on the property. And I will note on the clearing, if you see this property in the 50s, when it was sort of this water skiing haven, and if you look at the old aerial photographs, it was 100% cleared of native vegetation. It was kind of this rolling lawn landscape looking out to the lake. And, as much as the owners want to sort of honor the traditional layout, they didn't want to, they like the sort of haphazard location of the cottages. And I agree with Brian. I can't really figure out exactly. The front door was on different sides. It was like, they were like, let's just put one here. Let's just put one here. But they like that sort of, disjointed configuration. And we tried to honor that. As opposed for the driveway, yes, we followed the fire marshal's directives. We tried to provide grass parking because, if you go to the site right now, it has been in use. These cottages are occupied at least seasonally, a couple of them year round. We haven't found a need for a lot of parking, but I know that we wanted to meet the town code. So we literally have probably 5 parking spaces currently, and we're going to 20. We wanted to soften them by doing some grass parking. We removed the road to the north side and provided that nice buffer. In terms of the walks and the paths, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but I sort of wanted to just see the big picture. The clients don't want this sort of suburban, urban walkways between buildings. They want to respect the historical, you park your car sort of in the middle of the property where that lot line almost is, and you walk to your cottage. And they sort of like that provenance and wanted to keep it that way. There are no parking spaces right next to cottages, except for the one cottage that we will be making handicapped accessible, which has 2 spots. They're actually delineated on the survey, but the handicapped sign is hard to see with all those busy topography. The clearing and re-veg calculations, they were in the survey. We're happy to add them to the re-veg plan. I think we're comfortable with the clearing that was required for the cottage relocation, and additionally, the addition of the geothermal. It's a perfect location for a geothermal system, according to our engineers, and the clients really just wanted to be conscious about energy usage. I think that sort of long-term energy use probably is more important than some clearing of vegetation. But if the board wants to, evaluate that, we're open to suggestions. And there was a suggestion from Brian about shifting it. We will definitely look at shifting it. The problem is that we have a couple of septic systems, and the geothermal system has a pretty large tolerance to the septic system. So we have to sort of be respectful of the wetland setback and the septic setback. And if we can jiggle that a little bit, we're happy to look into that further. Same thing with the construction protocol. I myself want to know how this is going to be approached. So we do have the architects working on that right now in terms of would it be phased? Would the cottages be phase 1 and the main house phase 2? So we can definitely put together a sort of an educated construction protocol about how we would approach this. And because this is one of those sites where we do have the real estate where we could really be using one part of the property and working on the other. So I think that's probably a pretty good, thought path for us to proceed down. The lighting, well, of course, will meet the 12 feet or less. There's not a lot of lighting proposed on the site. That's sort of, door accesses and some uplighting, some lighting. We're happy to meet the code, and we'll revise that. Brian did sort of touch on the GFA of the main house. I think it is important to recognize that the cathedral sort of central living space in the house is only 5,200 square feet of GFA, but you have to add in that 1,500 square feet of space that's 2-story, because theoretically, I guess you could come back in the future and add a second floor there, but it's really a design intent. So it's a little bit of a misnomer to say it's a 6,700 square foot house, because you can't use 1,500 square feet of it. It's a ceiling level. I think I addressed most things, but I'm happy to ask more questions. Regarding the coastal portion of the project, we heard a lot of commentary the last time we came to the board. We had involved First Coastal and done some pretty significant coastal studies, and we heard pretty resoundingly that that was not something the board wanted to entertain, so we removed that from the project. That's the reasoning behind that, because the project that the owners want to see done is really to focus on, the environments and the cottages. So I think in conclusion, we've made some headway in addressing, the meat of the review. We have some other details to rework and a construction protocol to get you. But we'd really like some board feedback in case there's something that we have missed. And of course, Tiffany's here if there's anything that's legal in nature that I'm unqualified to respond to. We can't hear you, Chairman Kerman.
Sam, you're muted.
I'm sorry about that. I was coughing before. Randy, this is yours. Go ahead. Ms. Bistrian, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Randy.
Brian did a great job, and I think I'm inclined to accept all of his recommendations. I think my biggest concern, and Brian touched on this, is that when I look at the proposed sewage flow plan, it has flow, normally a single family residence has a flow of 300 gallons per day. And the calculation that the engineer used for all of these cottages is somewhere between 150 and 225. So there's an assumption here that these are going to be somewhere around half of the flow of a single family residence. But we all know how hard it is to find a place to live. And I don't see what's going to prevent these from being used as year-round homes, which would suggest that they're going to have a flow more like 300 gallons a day. And yet the septic system is designed as if they were going to have a flow of 150 or 225. So if we can do that with a covenant, I don't know how we do that. Does it mean that we want a bigger system? But I'm concerned that these units like these, with their winterized and available, I think they're going to be rented year round, or that there's going to be pressure to rent them year round. I was curious in there's a proposed pavilion and sauna and a separate septic system in the southern part of the lot. And I didn't see that in the narrative. I'm curious what is the proposal for that? Is that an amenity for the cottages, or what's the pavilion, the idea for the pavilion? I don't know. Should we try to get some dialogue on that, or you want me to just go through the question, Sam?
Well, maybe that's actually one of the things that I was wondering about, but maybe you should go through your comments and then we'll see what the board wants to pick up on.
Okay. Could we pull up the plans for the pavilion?
Yeah,
if we're
good
going to
idea.
discuss it?
The plans I have up now, or did you want something different?
The architectural plan for the pavilion?
Oh gosh. All right. If you want to keep talking, I'm gonna look for them. Okay.
Let Randy keep going, and then we'll backtrack.
Right. So I would expand the narrative to give us a little more information about the pavilion and storage area A and B, which are right there. What What is that part of the residential use? Is that part of the commercial use? What's envisioned there? My main concern, though, is about the intensity of the use. I mean, they're obviously doing a really fine job of designing this and everything, but I think it's an intensification of the use considerably, and we're right there by the lake. And I just want to make sure that that septic system is able to handle the real flow from these units. So that's it.
That was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I actually had, I guess, my questions kind of dovetail that. I'm curious how the applicant feels about the covenant in question number 9 to ensure that the new primary residence doesn't become part of the commercial operation of the proposal of the property. That I think also goes to that same overall issue of the intensification of the use, or potentially goes there. Does any other board members have anything they want to ask about, and then we can bring that back?
The only thing that hasn't been addressed by Britton was whether they would be willing to remove the dilapidated groin there on the lake.
The bulkhead, you mean?
The bulkhead, yeah.
Okay. I hope, Britton, I hope you're taking notes on these. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant on this?
Sam, I forgot to ask I saw on the plans, it says that all above ground propane tanks are to be removed. But I'm not clear exactly what type of fuel will all of the cottages use, and is it just going to be buried propane tanks, or is it some other type of fuel?
Okay.
I have a question too. Excuse me. Regarding that road, the proposed road down to the water, even though it's grass. I want to back up, first of all, and just say, I think the applicants did an amazing job coming back with a lot of change, and I'm very encouraged by the general improvement here, but I think there's still a ways to go. I think Randy raises a really important point, especially because some of those cottages are presently occupied year-round. I'm pretty sure Britton reported. But I'm concerned about that road down to the water, as well as removing, as Sharon brought up, those, the bulkhead and so on.
Okay. Anyone else with any questions before I turn the mic over to Ms. Bistrian? If not, Britton, you there?
I am. So forgive me if I've forgotten anybody's. The covenant that you brought up, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't covenant that the residents would not become part of the commercial operation. I mean, I just have to point out our certificate of occupancy is for a motel use in the cottage units and a single family residence use. So at some point we can covenant that we're going to honor the CO, but of course we're going to honor the CO. That's what we're allowed to do. We're not allowed to change the residence to a part of the commercial operation.
I guess the question arises because it's 6,500 square feet for the residents?
6,700, including the double space area. Yes.
So, it's pretty big. So,
right. But if you look at the floor plans, it's a two bedroom house. It's meant for the same purpose that's historically been on the property, which is the owners of the property that have run the business of the cottages will live in that residence and will run the business of the cottages. So as to the intensification of the use, we're not adding any cottages, and it's not, I understand what Randy's saying about the flow rates, but that's based on the Suffolk County flow rate for a motel and what the square footage of a motel unit is, because they aren't single family residences. So we don't really have an elective ability to say we're going to count a cottage that's a motel unit as a single family residence. We're just following the Suffolk County Sanitary Code.
Okay, well,
And
my
in terms
concern laid with the size of it, but if you're saying it's going to be a house, it's going to be a house, and that's it.
Right. If it's a motel unit, and I'm sorry, I don't know these numbers off the top of my head. A motel unit of a certain square footage is 150, a motel unit of a larger is 225, and a single family residence is 300. So we use those as motel units for the calculation of the septic on the site. And it should be noted that the health department doesn't allow us to have any more flow than this property had in 1981 or 84 when the modern sanitary code came in. So they're not allowing us to intensify this use according to their code. But yes, we would definitely sign the covenant that we won't use the house commercially. It's not the intention. My understanding is that we are hooking up to street gas, and that's driving the removal of all the above ground propane tanks, of which there are a bunch. But I would just like to confirm that with our MAP. I believe my understanding is that there is street gas on East Lake Drive. I don't know if I missed anything.
Groin removal. I mean, the bulkhead.
They're not interested in they heard the resounding comments from the board that they didn't like the proposal of, that they had spent a lot of time and money studying, that the board was not entertaining that. So they do not want to entertain any coastal work. That was a reaction to the first review.
So they're going to leave the bulkhead as it is?
They're just going to leave everything as it is.
It's going to fall apart.
Well, they would like to restore it. And, I don't know if this is something that should go to the zoning board as sort of the agency that sort of reviews that more often. But we're sort of at a stalemate on that particular issue.
Okay. All right. Okay.
What about the road, the Grassy Road?
I don't know if I agree necessarily with Brian's synopsis. From my understanding and if you take a shovel and go to a couple inches down, there is a pure asphalt road that runs from the east side of from the road side of the property all the way hooking down to the water. We did propose on the board's comments to remove 50% of it, roughly. They do want to keep some sort of just grass area cleared in case there's nothing that prevents vessels. That was the historic use of this property. There's nothing that prevents that. I think Tiffany maybe wants to say something about the LWRP, but that's their intention. And they did hear the asphalt was bad and they've decided to remove it and leave grass. I don't think it's going to be a frequent use, but they don't want to give up vehicular access to the beach, which has been traditional on the site.
Britton, are you going to talk about the pavilion and the storage buildings?
Oh, sure. Sorry, Brian, could you pull that up again? So Pavilion, it's really just so all the buildings to the south, if you look, there's kind of a dividing line, almost the tax map. The buildings to the southern side of the property are residential appurtenances, single family residence, a house. Pavilion is basically an open yoga studio that is attached to a pool house that relates to the pool and a dry sauna, sort of typical residential uses. That's for the use of the owners, and it's compartmentalized off to the on the private side of the property. Let's say there's no parking nearby. It's not you'd really have to. The intent is for their private use.
What are they going to do if one of the people in the cottage says, "Geez, I'd love to take a swim in that pool and go to the sauna and maybe sunbathe in that pavilion"? Would you mind?
I don't know if that's a planning question that I can answer.
Well, I guess as long as they're not charging for it. Does anybody on the board, Kathy? I see you have something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we need to hear a little more about some of these other things. I do feel that the intensification question, it seems impractical to me consider conducting a, artists retreat and have these cottages rented by artists for various periods of time, that they wouldn't be coming over to the residential property and doing just what Randy suggested, and potentially having art shows and so forth. That's the thing, I guess, that, the truth is some of my best friends are artists, but I know that everybody's always looking for a, place to work or a place to show their work. But I feel like that's not, that would have to be addressed in this covenant, because
Well, how do you get around the idea that it's a violation of the C of O, though? I mean, that's what
I don't know, but if there are art shows, if they're inviting people to come to viewings and so forth, I don't know. It just seems like.
But wouldn't that be a violation of their C of O?
I guess so, but it's not like that's never happened. Yeah.
No, they'd be doing it at their peril.
I get it, but I just think it's worth discussing it, and because maybe there's a way to provide some reassurances, because it's a quiet, pretty place there anyway.
Well, does the applicant have anything they want to address on that point, or any assurance that they might have?
The assurance that we're going to honor the certificate of occupancy on the property, and if you want us to covenant that, that's fine. I don't know where are you gonna. I don't even know where you would put an art show in a pool house bathroom. There's no space for that allocation, and the idea is for an artist retreat for plein air painting and things like that. And the transient motel use that already exists. If you want to add some language in the covenant that says that that's in our intention, we'd be happy to do that, because it is the intention. I just don't know how you do that, but we'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, no, it's not even for this, this ownership. It's that whole, it's the whole concept, Britain, as you know, that these things run with the land, and if they sell it in 2 years, who knows what's going to come take its place. That's all. It just opens the door for a different interpretation by the next owner. That's all. I'm just trying to think this through, in the interest of good planning. But thanks for that.
Well, if we can get some language that, that might cover it. Welcome, Ed. How are you?
Thank you. Well,
see you around.
I'm fine. I do have a question for Britton.
Go ahead.
So the pavilion that we're looking at, it's 3 separate structures of 600, 200, and 161 square feet, right? It's a pretty big amenity for a single family house, right? So I would presume that the covenant that we were talking about earlier about just assuring that the single family residence does not become part of the commercial part of this enterprise would include this structure as well, right? Because there are 2 showers and 2 bathrooms and 2 sinks. There's 600 square feet of yoga space. That's a pretty big and alluring amenity to an artist retreat, I would say, right?
We'd be happy to do that. I'll just point out it's a pretty large waterfront piece of property in East Hampton, and this is traditional appurtenances that I've seen in my experience with waterfront large acreages in the town of East Hampton. But we are happy to add that to the covenant. It's the intent.
Well, not ones that are next to an artist's retreat, right? Okay.
Right. There's a uniqueness.
But I get you. I understand there are a lot of very luxurious, pool pavilions, but it's. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If it's on the same property, we're talking. This is all one property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess a fence doesn't make sense. It'd probably be ugly, but I wonder if they could build a septic system with greater capacity than is required. Just a thought.
Well, haven't they taken into account Are you saying more than that which they're taking into account already?
Well, as Britton says, if it's truly a motel unit with no kitchen, and they're going to treat it as having half the flow of a residence. I think what happens is if these cottages have, dishwashers and washing machines and half refrigerators and that, and they're used year round, they're probably going to have more flow than 150 gallons a day. So I don't know, maybe there's some other term that can be used for them. I don't know. Detached motel units.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I could check the building plans here, but I think the first memo I did where I called them transient motels was inaccurate, and I think they're true motel units. I do think there are kitchenettes in each of these buildings. We can scroll through the plans, but I'm fairly sure of that. I don't want to scroll on the screen unless you want me to. Some people find it, pretty visually obnoxious to scroll through plans on the video screen.
Brian, I can confirm that there are kitchenette units in each of the units existing, and there are kitchenette units in each of the units proposed. Cottage units, and one kitchen in the single family residence.
Are they proposing washing machines and dishwashers in each unit? I'm just talking in terms of flow now.
I don't know the answer to washing machines. I do not believe so, but give me a second. I don't think there's washing machines. Sorry, there's a ton of plants here. There are no washing machines.
I have a question about I don't think we've talked about the revegetation plan.
Go ahead, Ian.
Go ahead. Comments on that?
Go ahead. Did you have a specific question on it, or just want general information?
Brian was asking for a little more definition in terms of the revegetation islands, and I haven't heard Britton comment on whether she wanted to amend that plan or not. So I don't know how much. I think we need to give her guidance whether we're okay with it or not. If she says she's willing to meet Brian's, requests, then it's an easy conversation.
Brian?
I think the question was for Britton.
Yes, it's for Britton. I don't think we've addressed Brian.
Can I just be? Are we talking about Brian's suggestion that the islands of revegetation are generally more sparse, and that you want to see it more akin to the planting that's on the north? Is that an accurate statement, Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't have any problem augmenting the islands to make it more similar to the planting at the north boundary. I'm sorry if I missed that question.
No problem. There's a lot here. And then my only other comment is it seems like this bulkhead is sort of fundamental. I don't know if this maybe is for Thomas. Is that something that we can weigh in on here, if it's existing, or how far can we go? I think somebody earlier suggested that maybe it's a ZBA, maybe it was Britton, the ZBA issue. But obviously we didn't like the rebuild. They listened to us there, but I'm not sure the intention was to just leave it, which might be a safety issue.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that and get back to you. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm just kind of surprised that you'd want to leave a plainly dilapidated structure. Well, not a structure, plainly dilapidated, structure there, and not do something about it.
They want to rebuild it. We don't want them to rebuild it, and so this is their next best option. But,
well, no, I get that, but well,
I think we should take that head on, because it seems to me like that might be the sticking point, depending on what we're allowed to do there.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, how would you see that if they were to remove the bulkhead and maybe some of the riprap there? What would that be, a whole kind of a landscaping plan to I think you called it renaturalize the shore. And that would go in for a separate natural resources permit.
Well, ideally, I think it would be great to do while there's heavy machinery on the property, and there's there's obviously going to be a lot of construction activity on the property. It has an impact on the shoreline. There's a lot of fill behind the bulkhead that's slowly leaking out. It's been kind of backfilled a little bit with chunks of concrete and other riprap. But if you can see it in the photos, and you can even see it better if you go to the property, at some point that wood is going to continue to deteriorate, and eventually it will collapse. They can ignore it for now, but sooner or later something needs to be done with it. And I think the logical time to do something with it is with the redevelopment of the property. You're going to reestablish, you're going to be bringing new guests to the property. It's a safety hazard now. It's ugly. And there's no doubt that it makes the environment better by getting in there with the machinery, pulling out that fill and pulling out that bulkhead and getting that riprap off the shoreline. You're improving the coastal habitat for countless of species that use the shoreline. You're allowing some of the wetland vegetation to come back. There's just, the benefits are really, when I say significant, that's not an understatement. They're enormous.
Would you see though them bringing in new fill and planting?
Well, I think, I even think just the removal, and I don't think you need new fill there. I think there's more fill than there should be there. So I think there's more removal. Maybe a little bit of sand as a top dressing. And I think any planting could be pretty sparse. You don't want it to get weedy, but it's a beach. It's a beach and shoreline area. The only thing that's suitable to really plant there are beach grass in the higher elevations, and the marsh grasses, the spartina in the lower elevations, and they can be a little tricky to get established. They'll establish themselves if you keep the weeds out. As long as it doesn't get full of Phragmites or knotweed, it'll naturalize itself. And that close to the shoreline, I think the risk of Phragmites is low as long as it's the shoreline's at a low elevation.
So you probably have to do some grading, right? Removal and grading.
No doubt. Yes.
Yeah.
I just wonder if, I think it was Britton, I might be mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong, suggested involving the ZBA. And frankly, this is sort of outside of our usual territory. The safety issue is real, and we want to protect the coastlines generally. But, if we remove this bulkhead and there's fill that's currently going in because the bulkhead's not good, like how much fill do they remove? What does that do to the coastline? It's a complicated issue, I think. And there's a little way to go on this application. So if the applicant is willing to talk to the ZBA about that, it seems like it would make sense. Whether the solution is to remove and revegetate, whatever. But it seems hard to kick that can down the road.
And I just want to offer, it will be hard for the zoning board to comment on a plan that they don't have. There's no application to remove the bulkhead or even to rebuild it right at this time. So the zoning board could offer an opinion about it. But there's really not much for them to review and issue a natural resources permit or weigh in an opinion on.
Well, I understand that. I totally understand that. I think, and again, I'm suggesting, or I think that Britton was saying, maybe create that application. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying they could tell us right now what to do. I'm just saying that whatever happens there, it seems like it's going to take some thought, unless we just leave it as is, which doesn't seem to be anybody's top choice. But whether it's removed or rebuilt or anything is done there, I think that there should be some kind of a plan. I mean, Britton, are you open to talking to the ZBA about that, or do you want to just, let us do our thing here? And
the client's first choice was to do the initial application. Their reaction to the board's reaction was to remove that work. So I don't know if there's I'd like to know what Thomas has to say specifically on whether, there's a legal issue here, or Tiffany.
Well, actually, I had a question for Tiffany, maybe, and I hope I'm not going to overstep. But has there been any thought given to the possibility that a bulkhead in this condition might be deemed to be an attractive nuisance?
I don't know that that's really a site plan question that I.
No, I don't know that it is either. I'm just asking, you know.
And it's not nearly in as poor a condition as it's been portrayed. I've been there myself many times.
All right, then. You know, I mean, it's on the property. It's something that you're aware of, and all right, it just occurred to me. So I don't think it matters necessarily. It's just, you know, based on the pictures, it kind of looks like it might be. So
it sounds like we should wait for, you know, to see what Thomas says.
Yeah, let's see what the overall response is from the applicant. I think it's appropriate, unless anybody has any other questions, maybe we should just run through the planning department questions and you know, give the applicant some sense of, you know, what we consider priorities and less so. So the first question is, does the board want to obtain a more detailed, comprehensive narrative from the applicant detailing all the proposed uses on the property and a construction protocol that identifies at a minimum the applicant's timing for reconstruction of the cottages, construction of the new primary residence, installation of sanitary system number 1, partial or completed revegetation, and an estimated time span to complete redevelopment of the property? That's a mouthful, but you know, it's all kind of tied into the same thing.
Can I just add a comment to that?
Please.
There's some of that we can absolutely address, a construction protocol with, in an ideal world, how we plan to rebuild cottages, build a pool, main residence. But there's some time component here where I can't say we're going to do this in September because I have no idea when I'm going to be done with this process. So we're happy to phase out an ideal world of the project and provide a construction protocol. I really would ask for the board to review the narrative that we've submitted, and then I believe we've submitted 2 to this point. I don't know where the lack of clarity is either in that narrative or the presentation, but if the board can give some direct comments on what they still don't understand about the narrative, I'm happy to address them, but we've really sort of detailed what every use is.
I will say that I think, and I only speak for myself here, that I've gotten a lot of the clarity that I was seeking in your answers, particularly, you know, regarding the residences, the residents and your intentions and your willingness to covenant things that are, you know, typically left to a COO.
I think, you know, having a couple of sentences about the use of the pavilion and those 2 storage buildings, it'd be good for us to have that in the narrative, that they're accessory to the residents, they're not for use by the people occupying the cottages, etc.
It sounded like they were willing to covenant that as well.
You don't think or do think?
I think that Britton said she was open.
Yeah, so do I. Britton, is that accurate? You are, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm just getting confused between the covenant and the request for the narrative. We're fine with the covenant, and
well, I guess if you covenant, you don't need the narrative.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, or at least it makes it, you know, pretty moot.
But I just want to be clear. I did submit a narrative, and there's a sentence in that narrative that says the main residence and associated accessory structure will be for the private use of the owners.
All right, well, you know what? Well, all right, so then that puts us halfway there, and the covenant would put us all the way there. So we can put that. What we'll do is in the letter, in our follow-up letter, we'll make some mention of a covenant to that end. Jody, you hear me on that one? Jody. All right. Well, I imagine I'll get a yes on that. All right. Does the board find the estimated 2.8 feet wetland setback reduction for cottage number 4/5 relocation acceptable? Everyone? Anyone say no to that? Hello? You're all muted. Okay, if I don't hear a no, then I'm going to assume everybody's on board with the question.
Okay.
Yes, all around.
Okay.
Yes.
Does the board want to obtain greater detail regarding any site regrading on the survey and the composition, including cross sections of the? All right. All right. Does the planning board want to require a revised landscaping plan that more clearly labels square footages of proposed clearing and revegetation and increases the quantity of woody vegetation in the revegetation islands around the cottages to be more consistent with the revegetation definition of the town code and the standards for revegetations within the NRSP jurisdiction? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. The applicants kind of agreed to that, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Does the board want to encourage or require the elimination of light use vehicular grass path proposed in the southern portion of the property? And Randy?
I think I have mixed feelings about it because, people are, once this is up and running, people are going to drive down to the water and unload their kayak if they want to, whether we show a driveway or not. And Britain's saying it's a past use. So I would be happy if we said that it wasn't going to be, repaved, it wasn't going to be paved, that it was going to gradually become a permeable, or as she called it, a light use grass. I don't have a problem with that.
I think that's the intention of light use vehicular grass path, which is such a lovely construction that we may want to apply that in other applications. But
I don't have an issue with it as long as that's what it remains.
Yeah, right, exactly it. That's exactly it. Okay, so I think we neither encourage or require the elimination of that, and just that's part of what's going to be in the application. Next one. Does the board?
I don't think we are encouraging the elimination of the.
No, we're not. I'm saying it's
okay.
It's part of this site plan. Does the board want to encourage the removal of the dilapidated bulkhead and timber groin from the shoreline?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me research that issue.
Oh, thank you.
So, Thomas, you're going to look into whether we could make that a condition of approval or something?
Or, yeah, whether the board has the authority to include any work on the bulkhead as part of this application, I think is the research question.
Okay, that'll be separate then from our follow-on letter. All right. So that in our letter, we'll say that they'll get separate direction. Does the board want to require relocation of the geothermal? I'm going to say something and it's irrelevant at this point. Do we require the relocation of the geothermal heating system farther from the shoreline of Lake Montauk? And that's a done issue, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And does the board want, and thank you for that, by the way, does the board want to evaluate a covenant that would ensure the primary residence does not become part of the commercial operation of the property? And again, thank you for that. Does the board want to require, finally, does the board want to require a lighting plan revised to include manufacturer's specs to ensure compliance with exterior lighting policy? And I don't expect there's an objection to that. All right. Ms. Scarlato, Ms. Bistreen, thank you very much. Does anyone have anything else on this application before we move on?
No. Happy
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays to everyone.
Brian, thank you very much for your hard work on this one.
Yeah, Brian, great job. Thank you so much. Yes, it's terrific.
Okay. We have two more in Montauk. We are ending the year at the end of the island. So the first one is Negron Realty Site Plan Special Permit Application. And that one is going to be Marcos and Ian. And who is the applicant's representative on that? Is that Ms. Wiltshire? Lori, is that you? Yes, you're muted if it's you.
Yes, it's Lori Wiltshire.
Yes, it's me.
Very good. I see you shaking your head and pointing your finger. So, okay, very well. But tapping on the button. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right, Marco, lead us away on this.
Okay. So this is a modification application to modify a site plan / special permit approval that was granted in 2012. It adds 2 window wells, a cellar entrance, a finished basement, porch, and other exterior changes to the proposed 2-story commercial building that has a retail / office first floor and an apartment on the second floor. The application was granted an extension of time in 2021 and has received variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2006 to allow parking in the right of way. The parcel is zoned CB Central Business. It's 4,100 square feet. It's vacant and is in downtown Montauk. So the applicant is proposing to modify the floor plan so that the previously approved storage basement is to be finished and under the label mercantile. The plans are attached to this memo. The order in which they are in is usually it's the first page is what was approved, and the page behind that should be the corresponding page behind that should be the one that is proposed by the applicant. I'll scroll down here. So this is the cellar / storage that was originally in the approval, and then below that would be what is the applicant is proposing, which has an additional laundry room, bath, and 2 window wells. The floor plans highly suggest that this basement area may be for a commercial use or a possible living space. In either case, the improvements and square footage would need to be accounted for in the proposed parking and sanitary calculations. As proposed, the applicant will need to provide additional parking spaces, which is 1 space per 180 square feet of the area for the use, sanitary flow, and seek additional parking variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The increase in required parking will require a substantial variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, as the site is already limited by space available parking. As previously mentioned, the applicant would also need to provide additional sanitary flow for the proposed basement, finished basement. The applicant has submitted a copy of their approved sanitary plan. However, it should be noted that the plan is prepared by a different architect / engineer and is not part of the listed plans. I'm just scrolling to the plan right now. It is not part of the listed plans in the approval. In addition, the plan that was approved by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services does not illustrate or account for the modifications as currently proposed. The previous sanitary plan, the proposed flow is roughly 290 gallons per day, which is under the maximum of 300 gallons per day. However, the modifications would require a different sanitary calculation, and it's most likely that would be greater than what was previously approved, and could increase the site's sanitary flow to above 300 gallons per day. The applicant should submit a copy of their sanitary plan to the board, as it contains new and different sanitary details from the ones in the approval. It should be noted that the new sanitary plan will be utilizing a low nitrogen IA system as required by Suffolk County. This is as opposed to the conventional system when the application was first approved. Setback requirements for accessory structures are in CB zoning are 10 feet from the property line. The proposed window wells and basement entrance will reduce the side yard setback to roughly 6 feet and 5 feet respectively. Just going to go back to that first plan. Sorry about that. So that would require relaxed side yard setbacks from the planning board. The department notes that the proposed trees along South Euclid Avenue should be replaced with an alternative native planting. The roots of the 2 proposed red maples may grow in a manner that may affect the nearby sidewalk. The planning department recommends the planting of flowering dogwood with the sizes of 12 to 10 feet as proposed in other parcels in downtown Montauk. The proposed modification will require approval from the ARB. It should be noted that the applicant is proposing an alternative facade and window design that is different from the original proposal, different style. The previously approved design is a two-year design, which is a common architectural style of downtown Montauk. The applicant is also proposing to convert the roofed porch facing South Euclid Avenue to a balcony for a second floor apartment. It should be noted in that sheet A3 currently lists different elevations as all south and east elevation, and that should be corrected. Although exterior changes and signage are in the purview of the ARB, the planning board may wish to review the design modifications and offer any comments to the applicant. In conclusion, although the modification appears relatively minor, it would increase the site's parking requirements and sanitary flow due to the finished basement. The applicant should clarify if the use of the basement is to be for living space or a commercial use, and the modification is incomplete pending those issues.
Okay. Thank you very much for covering all of that, Marco. It's a lot of issues on one property. And I think Laura, Ms. Wiltshire, if you'd like to say anything, any comments, please go right ahead.
I would actually. I spoke with the applicants today, and the basement, although proposed to be finished, is not intended to be used as additional retail space. It's mislabeled mercantile. It's supposed to be mercantile storage. So, in other words, storage for the retail space above. It's also perhaps going to be like the what do you call it, rest area for the employee, and therefore it's not going to impact parking or sanitary. The sanitary actually, the plan that's approved by the health department with the IA actually already says on it, dry retail, apartment, and storage. So that's accurate, and that should still be acceptable. And then I did also get clarification from the Joe Palermo in the building department that window wells are exempt from setbacks, so the planning board doesn't have to relax those.
Okay, very well. Anything else?
Yes, I also told my client to change the red maples to flowering dogwoods and to fix the errors on the elevations and to get those to me ASAP so we can get them on your next agenda.
Very good. Okay. Ian?
Yeah, thank you. I think the big question here is the basement, and Lori clarified that a little bit by saying it's just storage, but it sure does. I don't know how we treat that. If it's a break room with a bathroom, at what point is it something more than storage? It seems, if you're just looking at this, that the window wells are designed to let light in there. I don't know why that would be necessary for storage. It's a small project overall. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I do want to make sure we're looking at the right things. I mean, are you allowed to have a bathroom in a storage area?
I don't think it's what's the word I'm saying? Prohibited.
I mean, it wouldn't count towards their parking or generated sanitary flow. There was a little bit, as Marco outlined, there was a little bit of ambiguity on the plans as to what the use of the basement was going to be. But provided it continues to be either storage or mechanical space, we don't have an issue with it and don't see an issue with, with parking or sanitary. But, just to reiterate, that cannot be allowed to turn into a retail space or, this site is already developed in a way where you can't fit any more parking on it, and they would need substantial variances for that.
Right, which we're aware of.
And Eric, your opinion would be the same if it was a break room?
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we haven't traditionally counted that towards parking, and I don't believe the health department counts it towards sanitary. What they do for a building with an approved retail use is they go by the retail floor area. The show area. So, it should not be an issue for either of those.
Okay, great. Well, then I think that the ARB is important here. Architecturally, Marco's pointing out that it's currently designed very consistently with Montauk architecture. These new window wells are a little bit different. I'm not opposed to it. I wouldn't be opposed.
They won't be visible from the ground level. They're down below the window wells.
Affect the window itself at all?
They're dug out?
Yes, down below. Yes.
They're wells. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you walk up to it, you'll see that there's a dugout and a window behind it, right?
The dugout was always proposed. Now they're just adding these window wells for light. And the way they explained it to me is, when you're dealing with retail, they're going to have decent shelving downstairs. They're going to have to be putting boxes and unpacking boxes. I mean, that's a whole part of retail. So the light and the ability to step outside or to go use the break room or use the bathroom when you're down there working just makes it a little bit better. You don't want to have an unfinished basement with all of your goods on shelves downstairs waiting to come upstairs.
But the windows themselves are not changing at all?
I guess they're egress windows, right?
I think I would just add that the elevations should probably clarify those and illustrate the window wells on there. As currently proposed, you can see where the separate basement entrance is on this elevation plan, but you don't see where the window wells are. I think that would provide some clarity on there. But this is what it looks like when it was approved on the sides. This is, as you can see here on this western elevation, you can't see where the window well really is in terms of.
Do you want the elevations to depict the window wells?
Well, I would assume that there would be a curb or some sort of something to illustrate that it's there, similar to the fashion of how there's a fencing around the separate basement entrance. That way, if someone's walking, they would see that. I mean, obviously, when they're walking on the site, they could see the window well, but it's clear on the elevation plans where they are located. Except for on the foundation plans here. These were not in the original proposal. It's, as you can see here, it was just a regular rectangle square cellar storage, but they built out these window wells here.
Okay, that changes.
And the windows must be different too, because the windows with the well presumably go below grade to allow that light in.
They are below grade.
Right, that couldn't have been the case before if the window wells weren't there. To be clear, I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to it. It doesn't necessarily seem like you would need natural light for storage, but I'm not, not really here to judge that. My main point was that if the ARB is going to weigh in on this, I would like to hear from them. I don't want to sort of usurp their authority and approve it and then ask for their approval, because to me, if there is an architectural impact here, it's for them to decide.
We are in front of them.
What's that?
For coming up for modification.
Yeah. No, all I'm saying is I was going to ask about the routing of this application. I think it's great if you go before them, and hear from them before we have a final decision on this. The big issue for me was really the basement. Eric has clarified that there's no real issue there, and Eric and Marco. So I think that the window wells, if the basement is okay, and the ARB is okay with the window wells, that's fine with me. The last issue, I think, were the trees. You've agreed to change those out. So that's it for me.
Great. Thank you.
Does any other board member have any comment, Ed?
Just want to make sure we didn't lose Marco's comment. I think it's a good one that we should depict the window wells on the elevation.
I have written that down.
Okay.
Anyone have anything else?
Well, I think beyond that, just making sure all the plans, and I'm sorry, I should have said this, that, we have the right plans, that they're on. It seems like there was a new architect here and maybe some inconsistencies, which is not unusual, but just make sure that everything matches for the final application.
Yeah, and further to that point, this isn't Lori's first rodeo. I'm sure she knows this, but just to put it out there, it's probably a good idea to go to the ARB before you modify the plans and then bring those, get everything basically squared away with the ARB as far as what they want to see, because it is a significant change to the appearance, the facade of the building, not just the window wells, but get that straightened away with the ARB before you come back to the planning board.
Yeah, I was going to say that we don't want to, Ian brought it up. Of course, their purview, but I don't want us to approve something that they're going to then say, no, this isn't cool. So let's wait on, I feel like we should wait until we get there.
I agree with Kathy.
Before we make any decisions on it. I mean, Lori's gotten some feedback from us, which I'm sure has been helpful, but without the ARB's comments, I think we need to hold our horses a little bit.
Understood.
Yeah, I agree with them. Okay, does anyone have anything else they want to add on this application? In that case, we'll see you in the next year.
Thank you very much. Have a good holiday, everyone.
Holidays.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to our final site plan of the year. Is a site plan special permit.
Wow.
Yes, I know. Drum roll, please. Big Finish. This is 435 East Lake Drive. Is the applicant on the? I see.
Yes, Brian Matthews
Mr.
here.
Matthews. Hi, how are you? Okay, very well. We have Marco, Sharon. I see Sharon there. Okay. All right, Marco.
Okay. I will put on the aerial for the first couple of, I guess, seconds, just to get everyone a sense of idea where it is. I'm sure people will know generally where it is, but this is just a physical aerial. It's highlighted in teal. So this is an application that has been made to demolish three motel buildings that total 14 units, a 2,400 square foot restaurant, a horse barn, and decking, as you can see, is currently existing here. And that is to demolish those to construct three motel buildings, also totaling 14 units, a new restaurant, a swimming pool, and a fitness center. Additional improvements also include a gravel parking lot, IA sanitary systems, retaining walls, lighting and landscaping, an existing single-family residence, bulkhead, and 22 slip marina are to remain in place. All of the new 14 units are 2 stories with roof decking and vary in size. Just trying to find the share screen thing. And on the screen now should be, that's the existing site plan. I'll just scroll down further so you can see the site plan. And I can zoom out or in certain sections if needed. So building A, which is identified as building 4 on the site plan, which is this group of units here. That's 8 units, all at 2,288 square feet in gross floor area. 4 units with 3 bedrooms each, 4 units with 2 bedrooms each. Building B, which is also identified as building 2 as well. That is 2 units at 2,288 square feet. Those 2 units each have 3 bedrooms, and 1 unit is at 4,576 square feet and contains 4 bedrooms. The third building, or building C, is the exact same as building B. The new restaurant is proposed at roughly 3,000 square feet and contains 110 seats with a first floor dining area with a bar and a second floor outdoor dining area with a bar as well. The proposed fitness center is 3,000 square feet located along the north along East Lake Drive. The redevelopment is to also include substantial regrading, and that uses an unspecified amount of imported fill. The site itself is 3.84 acres upland parcel. It consists of a 3.84 upland parcel and a 6.74 acre underwater parcel. The lot is 100% cleared of naturally occurring vegetation. It is zoned RS Resort. It is within the Harbor Protection Overlay District and located on Lake Montauk, as you saw earlier. It is southwest of the Montauk Airport and Theodore Roosevelt County Park. A majority of the properties to the northwest and southeast are developed, and they include waterfront zoning and a residence zoning. The proposed project will require additional review from the Department of State of Environmental Conservation, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Suffolk County Planning Commission. As a property on Lake Montauk, the parcel is a significant coastal coastal fish and wildlife habitat and is a scenic area of statewide significance. The project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of Town Code. The planning board is recommended that the planning board request lead agency status for the project. It is recommended that the applicant submit a narrative that includes details on how the site will be utilized, details such as the level of public access for the restaurant and fitness center, hours of operation, the use of the single-family residence for housing workers, the anticipated number of staff, and the possibility of separated business operators. Any additional details of the use of the site may be requested by the planning board and should be included in that narrative as well. It is noted in various places on the submitted documents that the units are to be condominiums, although that is consistent with the definition of a resort use. The applicants should provide more details about the nature of the facility's intended operation as a condominium complex. So the resort use requires a special permit as defined in the town code. The applicant is proposing 3 motel buildings that total 14 two-story units with a basement crawl space and roof decking. I'll just scroll to the plan that shows you the 4 foundations of that. This is the restaurant, first floor plan. There is a second floor as well, which is, I believe, is supposed to be this over here. It's the outdoor area that sits on top of the portion of the restaurant. This is supposed to be the fitness center, but is labeled restaurant, and that should be amended. And these are the buildings here. I'll start with the biggest one, which was biggest block of buildings, units. So that has a first floor plan below and a second floor plan above. So as defined in, as currently proposed, the applicant would require multiple variances from the ZBA due to non-compliance with the definition of resort, which is in Chapter 255-5-50. It states that it states here that there shall be no less than 7,260 square feet of lot area devoted exclusively to the resort use for each dwelling unit. By this density calculation, the property has a yield of 27 units, whereas 14 are currently proposed. It appears that the proposed project is in compliance with that particular standard. However, below is part 2. The average maximum number of bedrooms shall not exceed 2.25 per unit in any proposal, and in no case shall there be more than 3 bedrooms in any unit. So the floor plans indicate a total of 39 bedrooms with 14 units, but the site plan has just a minor discrepancy, states that it has a total of 38 bedrooms. Regardless of the actual intended number of bedrooms, this would result in either an average of 2.78 or 2.71 bedrooms per unit, which would exceed the maximum allowed under that standard. Additionally, the maximum number of bedrooms cannot exceed 3, whereas floor plans indicate in Building B has 4 bedroom unit. I'll scroll down to the next. This is the elevation, so you can see the 2-story flat roof with a railing on top of that, and this is all to sit on top of the regrading, and there's a crawl space there. This is the Building B. Building C is basically the same, but mirrored in a different direction. So it's 1, 2, and then 3. But this one here, there's no wall in between these 2 sections, these 2 blocks, rectangular blocks. So this is considered, the applicant has proposed this as 1 unit here. That contains 4 bedrooms. So another part of the definition, the maximum habitable floor area of any dwelling unit shall not exceed 1,200 square feet. The average such area for all units on the site shall not exceed 1,000 square feet. The average size for each unit is 2,615 feet. square feet. All 14 units are proposed at nearly twice the maximum allowable size of 1,200 square feet. 2 of the 14 units are nearly 4 times the maximum of the allowable size. So moving on to drainage and regrading. This site will involve substantial regrading in order to meet the minimum separation to groundwater for the new sanitary systems. Areas within Harbor Protection Overlay District are required to maintain a minimum of 4 feet of vertical separation between the bottom of the leaching pool or galley to the groundwater. I'll just scroll to the sanitary plan. Once it gets there, it's just taking a while to load. Sorry about that. And I'll zoom in a little bit so you can get a general sense, an idea of where they are. So the provided test hole data was taken at an elevation of 4.3 feet and shows that the water is encountered from as high as 2.6 feet. The applicant is proposing substantial regrading and a series of retaining walls around the site. Kind of hard to see here at this level of zoom, but it roughly goes around the property in kind of like a square sandbox. So those are a series of retaining walls that raise roughly about 3/4 of the site, anywhere from 4 to 5 feet from existing grade. Additional sanitary cross sections should be provided in order to demonstrate that the new sanitary systems would meet the minimum separation of groundwater. Raising portions of the 3.84 acre parcel that would require a substantial amount of fill and significantly alter the flow of drainage, and that may have impacts on the neighboring properties or on Lake Montauk. Details such as the source of fill, the amount of fill, and type of fill should be assessed and should be included in the revised site plan. A large majority of the sanitary systems are to be located underneath the parking areas. Should be noted that the areas under HPOD, that no parking lot or private driveway shall be constructed unless it has either an unimproved surface, for example, dirt or crushed shells, or an improved surface consisting of one of the more following materials, which is poured concrete, hot plant mixed asphalt, rapid curing cut black asphalt, or quartz gravel. It's been past practice from the planning department and the town engineer to recommend the use of quartz gravel, as well as the zoning board to require quartz gravel. The septic plan indicates that the existing on-site generated sanitary flow is 5,143 gallons per day, whereas the allowable generated sanitary flow under Suffolk County standards is roughly 2,750 gallons per day. The proposed generated sanitary flow is identified to be 5,130, which is about a difference of 13 from the existing, which is a slight reduction in the overall generated sanitary flow, but it's still nearly double the allowable flow on the property abutting Lake Montauk. As mentioned before, the existing sanitary flow figure is based on a restaurant of 230 seats, but as per the most recently approved site plan, the property is limited to 75 seats. That's indoor plus outdoor. Additionally, the provided proposed sanitary calculations do not identify a generated sanitary flow for the marina use, but rather identify it as included in condo. The applicants should submit a separate application to the Department of Health Services, Suffolk County Department of Health Services, as soon as possible. And coordination with this involved agency would be vital to the proper review of the proposal, particularly given the shallow vertical distance to groundwater, the short horizontal distance to the surface waters of Lake Montauk. A border review from the Suffolk County Department of Health Service may be required. The application would also need approval from the ARB. This area is a designated area of scenic area of statewide significance, and it is noted in the it's noted the buildings are designed to be basically flat-roofed, two-story buildings with multiple glass panels. The facade may be discordant with the surrounding area. Access to the site is provided by two entrances. There's one main entrance and one for what appears to be for the staff parking. The parking for the restaurant and fitness center is to handle two-way traffic, while the parking for the motel units is to be a one-way ring road. I'll just scroll to a plan that is a little bit more clear on illustrating the access. The parking plans indicate that their total parking required is 171 parking stalls, 9 of which are to be for ADA access. However, only 111 spaces have been provided. I'll just zoom in on the table for the parking calculations as soon as it loads. The parking calculations on the submitted site plan do not account for the marina use. The plan includes a notation that says marina parking can be 0 if the slips are for residences only. The applicant should refer to section 255-11-42, subsection B. Parking for the marina is counted and required in addition to that of all other uses. The calculations should be revised to reflect the requirements of town code, and a variance from the minimum number of on-site parking spaces would be required under the current proposal. The property is considered 100% cleared of naturally occurring vegetation. However, it is required to contain a roughly 11,000 square foot area of native plantings adjacent to the bulkhead. This vegetated buffer along the shoreline is to be in accordance with a ZBA determination made in 2015 in order to provide multiple environmental benefits. I will scroll to that, the applicant's proposed landscaping plan. Just take a few seconds. So as you can see, the marina is roughly where you can see on the plan where the docks are and the marina is, and the slips and circles. And there's a sand footpath here that is the applicant is proposing. This is where the planted area of 11,000 square feet is currently located and is to remain there. The applicant is proposing landscaping along the seaward side and some landscaping in the form of, I believe it's eastern red cedars along East Lake Drive. But it does, so the plantings here do provide a high quality coastal habitat for native plantings, as well as for the foraging and nesting grounds for resident and migratory bird species, bird and insect species. The vegetation helps stabilize the shoreline, minimizes the risk of coastal erosion and splash erosion from precipitation, and helps to retain and dissipate water during periods of flooding. As a reminder, the project is within multiple flood zone classifications, flood zone X500, AE 5, AE 6, and VE 8. I hope my terminology is correct. The proposed project includes the new lighting fixtures and substantial landscaping. It appears that the fixtures are full cut off and concentrated in areas by built structures such as sidewalks and the swimming pool, which is located in the middle here. New plantings include multiple trees such as shadbush and eastern red cedars, shrubs, wildflowers, and grasses surrounding the property. Most notably, a series of eastern red cedars are proposed along East Lake Drive as screening. along here, so in front of the fitness center and along this side as well. Given the significant planning concerns raised earlier, the planning board may wish to discuss landscaping and lighting in greater detail at a later date. The applicant has submitted an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a natural resources special permit. It is noted that the site does contain existing concerns regarding a previously approved dredging permit and existing dredging levels. Additional maps such as hydrographs for the depths within the areas proposed to be dredged may need to be submitted for the planning board's file. Given the aforementioned issues and pending ZBA application, this is also something that the planning board may wish to discuss before sending comments to the ZBA at a later date. As noted previously, the application will require review from the Federal Aviation Association, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and the Suffolk County Planning Commission, given its proximity to the Montauk Airport and the park earlier. I'll just show you that back very quickly on the aerial.
It's a good idea. The photograph does the best job of it. Yeah, there you go.
So I'll just zoom out a little bit more. Obviously below, this is Lake Montauk. That is the Montauk Airport, and that is the park over here. Nearby to the northeast and the northwest and the southeast are other parcels that contain waterfront zoning and residences there as well. The Montauk Airport is directly across from this site, which I've noted. No comments have been received from the Chief Fire Marshal. It would have to meet ADA, of course. It's noted that there's no ADA parking spaces for the, none of them have been proposed for the northwestern parking lot, which appears to service the fitness center and the workers. It is recommended that a ramp should be provided as well as an alternative access to the subject parking lot and a single family house from the main site as opposed to a proposed single staircase. So in conclusion, the application is incomplete. The project is a significant redevelopment of the property and a significant increase in the scale of development. This is including, but not limited to, an increase in generated sanitary flow, increase in gross floor area, increase in the number of bedrooms and potentially in turn generated site traffic, increase in scale and height of the buildings, new amenities such as the fitness center and swimming pool, the need for substantial fill and regrading, the granting of multiple substantial variances by the Zoning Board of Appeals. At the time of this review, the Planning Department recommends the applicant substantially reduce the scale of the project given its potential for significant adverse environmental impacts as currently proposed. In the absence of such changes to the proposal, the Planning Board should consider making a positive declaration pursuant to SECRA in Chapter 128 of the Town Code, requiring the preparation of an environmental impact statement.
Marco, that was a thorough report, to say the least, of an extremely complex proposal.
It was very well prepared.
Yeah, it really was. It covered all the ground, and there was a lot of ground to cover. So thank you for that. Mr. Matthews, would you like to be heard? Brian, you there? He was.
Sorry. Yes, here I am. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Brian Matthews, Kirsten Cooley here on behalf of the applicant, 435 East Lake Drive, LLC. And like the board, we thank Marco for a typically very thorough memo, as always. And I know the applicant would like to thank the planning department for, the work that they've put in, been gracious enough to put in with the applicant to date and trying to get this application off the ground and get it in front of you and start getting a project moving. We certainly understand and appreciate that this is a big application. It's a complete redevelopment of a waterfront property. But I think, when you get past that in the abstract and we really start looking at it, as we'll do, tonight and the next, when it continues to be on, that there are a number of significant environmental benefits that come along with this application. There's going to be, better drainage on the site. There's going to be, the property is right now 100% cleared of native vegetation, including along the shoreline. The applicant's proposing, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 55,000 square feet of revegetation. And there's going to be, by virtue of the installation of an updated IA nitrogen reducing system, significant benefits to both the groundwater and the surface water. So I think when we start working through this application, in addition to the aesthetic benefits for, getting rid of, really taking a property that's kind of become run down over the years and, putting in its place, beautifully designed buildings to increase, the aesthetics and the beauty of the neighborhood. And the operational components that, we'll put in a supplemental narrative addressing that. But I think once we get through and really start reviewing this application, those are going to become clear. And, they're clear to us, certainly. We've been working on this, and we think they're going to become clearer to the department and to the board. There's just a couple of items that I wanted to note first. We'll put in, and I'm going to be brief because it is our first time on, and mostly I wanted to be able to give us an opportunity to hear from the department, even though we had the memo, and hear from the board, really. We'll put in the additional narrative. We did put in a letter narrative, I think it was December 3rd, that addressed some of these issues, but, we'll put in a supplemental narrative addressing some of these other issues that were raised in the memo. We'll put in the additional drainage plans. The application to the county is, I don't know if it's been submitted just yet. David Rhodes from TF Engineering is handling that, and I think he was waiting to kind of get this process going a little bit before that application formally got submitted. Obviously, and we'll address our zoning board appeals application because that's a major part of the memo, if needed. And, one of the things that they go in this memo that I wanted to talk about is the big issue is the number of rooms and units. So right now there are, 14 units on site, and we're proposing 14 units, whereas, the number of bedrooms I think is increasing from 14 to, I think it's 38. But that may seem, again, in the abstract, like a large increase. When you look at the lot area of the property, and you can have, I think it was 27 units by lot area with an average of 2.25 bedrooms. I think that takes you over 60 bedrooms that this lot area could yield. But I would also note that the 38 bedrooms, as it is right now, still meets the flow, the sanitary flow for the property, and even there is going to be a slight reduction. So I think those are all important items to keep in mind. So, that being said, we'll get all this information in, and we're happy to answer any questions, or I'm very happy to answer any questions that the board has at this time. But we really wanted to take this opportunity to, hear the board out about what your thoughts, concerns, likes and dislikes, what have you, with respect to the application are.
Great. Well, thanks for that. There's a lot of questions that come up. So, Sharon, you want to start wading through those questions?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate, what the applicant is saying in terms of, number of units they're allowed to have. But, we have a huge, it's just whether you're improving this, environmentally, it's still a huge change from what exists today. So, you have 14 units with one bedroom in those 14 units, and those 14 units are now becoming 38 bedrooms. So there is an intensification that's happening here. And the restaurant, is going from 2,400 square feet to 3,000 square feet. You're adding fitness and parking. And so, even though I appreciate some of the environmental improvements, I think we have to look at what's happening here. And it's a big intensification. We've been using that word tonight for other projects, but I think I think this one takes the cake in terms of intensification. So, I don't really want to get, the variances needed for the size of these units is tremendous. I don't even see how the zoning board's even going to approach this from 1,200 square feet to over 4,000 square feet on two of them. And then the rest are double, the size of what's allowed in our code. So, for me, that's almost right there where we have to start, is just the size of the units I don't see the zoning board passing that. And it's almost, that's pretty much your project. And I don't even know how we proceed without getting the zoning board to weigh in on that at this point. So, that's where it is for me right now. The size of the units are just too big. And I guess you're lacking some parking, it sounds like. And again, yes, you're reducing the sanitary flow from what is, I guess, allowed on the property or what is being used now. But, again, you're not improving your sanitation flow when you're allowed half of that if you were to go with today's standards. And I have a lot of other notes. The fill that's needed is a lot, and I understand that you need that for the septic system to meet the separation from groundwater. And I don't think it's important to talk about the lighting and everything else unless we've got this resolved with the size of the units. Yeah. So that's where I am right now.
Okay, Sharon, would you like to make a motion on lead agency?
Oh, sure. I'll make a motion to that we would take lead agency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're the lead agency. Very good. All right. There's a lot here, so I imagine that the members of the board have many things to say. Does anybody want to lead us off? No. Okay. You can go. Well, go ahead. Whose picture came up? But go ahead.
There's going to be a lot said here, and as the applicant said, they wanted to get the memo and then respond. I just want to focus on one thing, which is I think that you're within, you're reducing the flow, but I think it's a little bit of a game, and I don't mean that in a negative way, between the size of the units, because I believe the health department calculates based on the unit, of more than 400 square feet is 150 gallons or whatever it is. So I actually think that if you comply with our code, you're then going to be way over the flow that the county allows. I'm not positive about that, but I think that once you start to come within compliance of our code, you're going to have issues with the county, and that's naturally going to lead to a scale back of this project, unless you intend on, applying for massive variances. The planners would know more than me about that, whether I'm right or wrong. But that's all to say that basically I think that, if I'm right, this will naturally scale back, and there's a better chance of it, proceeding. As it is now, it's a very big project. You obviously have a right to redevelop your property, and I understand that, but I think there's a reason why some of these numbers are so glaringly off in terms of the size of the units, and I think it's going to work itself out when you come into compliance with both Suffolk County and the town. I'm not going to go into many other details because I know everybody else will, but to me, that is the crux of the issue.
Okay, very good. Lou.
Yeah, I want to say a couple of things. I'm reminded of, I don't have all the details straight, but the general story goes that back in the 70s, there were these intrepid ladies who protested vehemently against development of property not too far from this property near Oyster Pond, right across East Lake Drive. And the developer wanted to put up multiple housing units. And these ladies became the first concerned citizens of Montauk, and that's how CCOM started, and they were successful. And we're grateful to them for all the work that they did, because that land has been preserved. But I don't want to pull any punches, because I know sometimes we try to be as courteous as we can, and I am going to be courteous, but I just want to emphasize that this project is way out of bounds. It's way out of bounds. It's way too large. There are so many different problems with it. And I'll just go through it really quickly. A lot of it was already in the memo, but I mean, you violate the number of the average size of the bedrooms. There's about 3 different standards there that you violate. I also want to point out, which I think this is interesting with regard to the sanitary system, in the additional rules for particular principal and accessory uses, which is section 255-11-88, which was also in the memo. Section 5B, I just want to read one part of it, which I find very interesting. Approval of proposed sewage disposal and water supply facilities by any other governmental agency shall not in itself be deemed to compel the planning board to find that the requirements of this subsection have been met. Also, the board may condition site plan approval on additional reasonable requirements beyond those which may have been called for by other governmental agencies. I think the sanitary flow here being double what would normally be allowed is alarming, being where this property is located. The drainage is going to be a problem because of the fill that's required to house the sanitary system. Parking is not sufficient. I think the requirement is 171. The provided is 111. The impact on Lake Montauk from increased sanitary flow and the raised grade causing additional drainage flow into the lake is a problem. The increased density from the condos, the fitness center, the restaurant, as well as the increased scale of the buildings, which were going to be despoiling the natural landscape of the area. I mean, this is such an anomalous project where it's located. And not to mention the increased traffic on an already burdened single-lane East Lake Drive. So that's just touching briefly on some of the major issues that I have with this project. To say that it needs to be scaled back is really putting it very, very lightly. This, as I started my comments with, and I'll end it, this project, the way it's proposed, is way, way out of bounds. That's all I have.
Well, thank you very much, Lou, and I appreciate those comments. I'm going to go over to Ed and then to Randy and close with Kathy. I guess after the 3 of us, I mixed it up a little bit. So, Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, a question for Mr. Matthews. So, just so I'm clear about this, is the intention to sell these as condominium units? This is a condominium, right?
Is the intention to sell them as condominium units? I think the intention is to run it as a resort.
Okay, but we keep referring to them as condominiums. Why is that?
I think that's probably because it's kind of an anomaly in the code. I can get that. I can get clarity on that for you in the narrative, however.
Okay. All right. I think it would be interesting to know. I mean, because frankly, the scale of them is such that they are like townhouse condominiums. I mean, they're
Right.
very large. There's no question about that.
Right.
So I'd be interested to really know how you intend to, how the applicant intends to operate the complex. But yeah, I mean, listen, a lot has already been said. I don't need to repeat it. I think it is a very aggressive application. It's a big ask. It's very intense use, no question about it. And, I think the bottom line for me is that it's very difficult for us to weigh in on this until we understand from the ZBA whether or not they're going to grant the needed variances here. We could be looking at a very different project down the line. But yeah, I agree with my colleagues that this is an incredibly intense project and out of scale with the neighborhood, and probably a bit too slick for where this is going. And also very unhappy to see Rick's Krabby Cowboy go.
Yeah, this isn't Rick's. This was.
I thought Rick's was.
No, Rick's is up. Is a little up the road, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this is that property, Mr. Chairman.
This is Rick.
Yeah, it's Rick. Yeah.
I thought these were
This is
right next to
Rick's Krabby Cowboys sold the property.
Yeah.
It's a little confusing because the restaurant Rick's Krabby Cowboy is on the same property as the.
Oh, it's further back. Okay, yeah. You're right,
That's where the new one's located.
You're right. You know what is, and I agree with you about the loss of Rick's is a loss, but the immediate on East Lake Drive or closer to East Lake Drive, there are those one-story units. Or is my memory playing tricks on me?
Yeah, these are one-story units.
Yeah, okay. But Rick's is at the end of. Okay,
it's right next to Rick's. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Randy, go ahead.
I agree with Lou and everybody else. I would say, bring us a conforming application for starters. So that kind of summarizes a couple of other things.
Short and sweet, Randy. Short and sweet. Less is more.
Aquaculture. Rick's used to have aquaculture in the underwater land. I don't know if that's continuing or not, but and the other minor point I would make is when you do the test hole here to set the top of the water table, it should be done at high tide. So that's all I have to say right now.
Okay. Kathy?
Yeah, it's hard to augment what's been said. I agree wholeheartedly with everything everyone said. I think Randy raises really important points about setting the water table. I mean, when you have to elevate the entire property by 5 feet just to accommodate your septic system, it kind of tells you something about the area that you're building in, which is, I mean, with the climate change and rising sea level, and one of the things that I've worried about, which is just there's going to be so much more stormwater runoff with the size of this project. I don't know where all that's going to go. And, it's not just the septic. The septic, of course, is important, but, this is such a low-lying area. It's just going to flood everything around it. So I think you have to start over. I think Randy put it succinctly, give us a project that conforms with zoning, and then we can better help you in this redevelopment. I mean, obviously the owner has the right to redevelop it, but it's just too darn big. It's just too darn big.
All right, Kathy. Well, I should say that I, of course, associate myself with all the comments that were made previously. I think that Lou's comments were very useful in terms of, pointing out the the specifics, and of course Sharon's, her analysis on behalf of the board, which is why there really isn't much to add. I mean, it's almost hard to think that this application is a serious one because there's so much wrong with it. I'm just going to go through the questions, and hopefully the applicant will see, understand, our upset with this application. Should a more detailed project narrative, including the level of public access for the restaurant and fitness center, hours of operation, use of the single-family residence for housing workers, anticipated number of staff, and the operation of the site as a condominium complex, be submitted? Anyone disagree with that?
Well,
Okay.
I think it's premature. I mean, I think this needs a redesign.
Well, yeah, but look, we have questions, we're going to frame them, and at least that'll give the applicant some sense of the things that, in addition to whatever the applicant's taken away from tonight's discussion, it's intended to, frame the next application. So, does anyone disagree with any of that? I don't see anyone. Okay.
Nope.
Should sanitary calculations be amended to reflect the approved number of seats?
Yeah.
Anyone? No?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Should parking calculations be amended to reflect the requirements of the town code?
Yes.
Yes.
Obviously.
This one is, I guess, the prerequisite. Should the vegetated buffer along the bulkhead previously required by the ZBA be included in the proposed project?
It should be put in now.
Yeah. And the last, should the overall scale of the proposed project, including but not limited to mass of proposed buildings, gross floor area of the units, the number of bedrooms, the need for variances, etc., be reduced? Everyone?
Yes.
There you are. Mr. Matthews, I think you've heard pretty clearly from the board.
I have, Mr. Chairman. And I
If you want to say anything, go right ahead.
I would very quickly, because I think it's know that it's late, and I know that this is a big redevelopment of this property. But I think, I take the comments in the spirit that I think that they're being issued in, but I think to question in somewhat of a tone that this is a less than serious applicant and a less than serious application is something I do take serious. This is a very serious applicant. There's no obligation that they design a project that doesn't require variances. Whether this board has a view of the scope of those variances is fair enough, and we can address that. This is the first time on. It's not unusual for a first time on application to be maybe a little bit more than the applicant can expect to get, or the board would like to approve, or even it thinks the zoning board would like to approve. But the fact of the matter is that outside of the size of the units, this application is conforming. It conforms to coverage and clearing and GFA. It increases, contrary to, I think it was one of the statements, I can't remember if it was Lou or Ed, it doesn't increase the impact of Lake Montauk by increased flow. The flow is decreasing. And it does not impact the natural landscape of this area. I understand, I live in Montauk, I know what East Lake Drive is like. When you drive down this property, you look at the Anglers Club with the building that hovers over this to the north and the airport to the east. This is not set in a bucolic area, this property itself, which is what we're looking at here. So we're going to take all these comments and we are going to look at this application. We take them all to heart. And obviously the expectation wasn't that this is great, let's move this to a public hearing for it on a first time on. But I think in fairness to the applicant who's put an exceptional amount of money into this property and to this application, they're very serious. And they will appear. I didn't think it was necessary for them to appear at this time. For the first time on, because we wanted to hear the board's comments, but I thought in fairness to them, I thought it was important to get that point across.
Since I'm the one who said the business about taking it seriously, I don't mean that to sound as harsh as it definitely sounded to you, or at least as it appears to have sounded to you. What I'm saying is that when I hear such unanimity on this board about something that seems so obvious, that it's just, an application that is too much, too big, that's kind of, if my words were too strong, I
think it's a fair point, and I know, like I said, I know that it's late and it's a long day, but I think it's a fair point.
Yeah,
we are going to look at that, and that's okay. But And I wasn't trying to single, Mr. Chairman, anybody out or anything.
No, I said it.
But I
So,
thought in fairness to the applicant, I thought it was important to let the board know that they are serious and they do want to, and I think the planning department who's worked with the principal of the applicant for months now, even before they actually purchased the property, I think they can attest to that. So do they want to try and maximize what they do? Well, I think who wouldn't? And there's nothing wrong with that. Does it have to be tweaked? Of course it does. Every application does, no matter how big or small, as you can see from even minor sub-waivers that come on to collect clerical things. Things have to get addressed as you go along, and you'll see that we'll do that, and the applicant will do that.
Yeah, no, Brian, all I'm saying is, I take these applications seriously, and I know everyone on the board does. And, so I'm hopeful that, next time we get one, we can, get, because this is an important place. And
it's an important place. I guess I understand some of the nostalgia about Rick's, even though the town has been trying to shut it down for years. I liked the jingle myself, what are you going to do? But, the fact of the matter is that they do, as I think Ian mentioned, there is a right to redevelop the property and nothing stays the same, like it or not, whether it's what people's preference or not. And that it is, in our view, does it push the envelope a little bit here, this initial filing? Yeah, sure. And that's okay. Does it get to the point where maybe some variances are sought, even though they're not really as big on paper as maybe it would seem? Yeah, maybe there is. And if they want to go down that road, we'll go down that road. But the fact is that, you're allowed to have a resort here. You're allowed to have X amount of units. It does have a certain amount of grandfathered in sanitary flow. And, there's nothing wrong with trying, that's what adds value to the property. There's nothing wrong with trying to utilize that.
All right. Well, we'll see you in the next year then.
Yes. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hey, can I say one more thing on this?
Yeah, go right ahead. If you have a question for Ms. Matthews.
Long night. The planning department, I just want to recognize the planning department also, recommended if the project stays this scale, we consider a positive declaration. We would never do that on the first go around, but I just want to say that it behooves everybody to come up with a plan that fits. If the applicant thinks this is, and I certainly take this plan seriously, but I think looking at parking, the size of the units, the flow, the number of units, the grade, all those things, we should get to a scale that's reasonable, because it is our obligation to make a declaration once we realize that the project truly is.
Yeah, I would agree that I didn't see the board, and I did mention that, or I did see that mentioned in the memo. And I would agree, and I think it was even referenced in one of the earlier applications about being too early for a declaration. And I would agree with that, particularly something, as a pos deck that comes with a lot with it, as everyone on this board knows. We'll address that, but it's, just not every application, however much of a redevelopment it calls for of a 4-acre property warrants a positive declaration, but we can get into that as we go forward when tweaks are made and we talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Well, I only say that, Brian, because it is our obligation to make that determination at a certain point, as early as we see how the thing is going. And so if this truly does need to be scaled back based on, health, based on whatever, all the issues that have been mentioned, I think it behooves you and everybody else to do it as soon as possible. So we get to something that we can,
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. And I think, yeah.
I think the message has gotten across, and we're not, no one's making a pos deck tonight. So like I said, we'll see you in the new year, and we'll see where we go with it. And we will take it seriously. I take it seriously.
And as I expected, I just felt in fairness to the applicant.
Fair enough.
We take every application seriously. We take every application.
I don't want to get tied up on a word that I
understand. I think it's important.
I think the applicant knows where we are. And let's everybody, it's 9:26 and we do have a few items on our regular meeting. So Mr. Matthews, have a very happy and a healthy new year.
Yes, happy holidays.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Take care. Okay, we are now moving into the regular meeting. We have a board of review. We have a few resolutions. I'll do the board of review very quickly. This is on the request of Paul Arbia for a building permit on the premises located at 51 Wooded Oak Lane in East Hampton, lots 13 to 19, block number 5, urban renewal parcel number 20, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-141-3-4.2. I have read the border review. I've read the work to be completed. The undertaking is in the amount of $13,000, and I move for. It is subject to review 1 year from the date of the resolution. I move for its adoption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Passed and carried 7-0. Okay, first we have the sub-waiver, the modification on 294 Abraham's Path. Lou, that's yours.
Okay. If I can find it.
I have it.
It's it. Lou, you want to defer to Kathy?
Do you mind reading it?
Not at all. Not at all. Matter of the application of 294 Abrams Path LLC subwaiver, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-149-2-31. A resolution amending approval for modification to the subdivision approval of January 27 of this year. There was two minor scrivener's errors. I've read the resolution and moved for its adoption.
Second?
Second.
Ed, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Okay. Next is the settlement authorization through Singular Wireless at St. Peter's Chapel. And Ian, I think you said you would take this one?
I can introduce the
okay, yeah, all right, Tom,
topic a little
some
bit.
words from council first.
So just to provide some context, this is a settlement the town and council has negotiated with AT&T over the denial of the St. Peter's Chapel personal wireless facility application. The basic terms of the settlement, just in very broad strokes, are that AT&T will make a new application for a monopole structure toward the back center of the property to the planning board, the zoning board, and the ARB. All three boards will have 60 days with some contingencies to consider that application and either approve or deny. If denied, then the settlement agreement states that the Campanile structure, which the board had previously denied, would be deemed approved. This is a similar structure as far as a settlement as the Iacono Farms brush dump settlement from a couple years ago. Just, as a, I was the counsel to the board when the denial was made in July 2020. I've been counsel on this case along with Kelly Wright, who handles most of, if not all of the town's cell tower litigation. We recommend that the board authorize the chairman to sign the settlement stipulation. It's our opinion that I understand the board denied the Campanile structure, and many of the board members at that denial, or members of the public as well, stated that the site itself was not proper for a cell tower. It's our opinion as council that that position is not going to be tenable in federal court. Just to remind the board that there's federal law at play that supersedes the local zoning law. And during the meetings in July 2020, when the denial was made, several board members stated a preference for a structure other than a Campanile. This settlement gives the opportunity to accomplish that goal. It's our opinion that pursuing further litigation for a complete denial on this site is not likely to be successful. And so this is, in our opinion, the best way to provide another structure for the site that the board maybe more willing to approve. So it's completely up to you. You have the right to decide not to settle the case, but we want you to have all of the information and what that would mean if you decided not to. So with that, we recommend that the board vote to authorize a settlement. But it's your decision. And if you do vote to authorize it, there will be a vote from the town board and the ARB as well. And if they vote to authorize a settlement, then there will be an application from AT&T right around the beginning of the new year.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas.
Sam, I'm recused.
Thank you, Ed. I was going to mention that, but very well. Sorry. So Ed's recused. So with that, and Thomas, just to make clear, this is a litigation that's pending in the federal court in the Eastern District of New York, brought by AT&T against the planning board and other elements of the town.
That's correct.
Okay, Ian, if you would.
Yeah, I just want to say real quickly, we spent a lot of time on this application as a board before it was eventually denied. Since the lawsuit has been brought up, we've talked to our counsel and Thomas, outside counsel, our wireless consultants. This isn't about what any of us personally want. Our job is to look out for the best interests of the town, within the framework of the laws. And with that in mind, I think that approving this is in the best interest of the town, considering all of the facts that we know, and I don't take that lightly. So in the matter of the application of new singular wireless AT&T at St. Peter's Chapel personal wireless service facility, site plan special permit to authorize for the authorization of settlement agreement, I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lou. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody else? Aye.
Aye, I said. Mhm.
I'm sorry, Shannon here. Ian?
Aye. Yep.
Kathy?
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Abstain. Okay. Randy?
I'm going to vote no because I think
Just yes or no? Just yes, no, or abstain.
Wait a minute. Ian got to introduce
Ian, the motion hadn't been made.
I'm not going to say anything that jeopardizes the position of the town. I think that we can do better than this.
Okay.
I think that the town board should have taken a more active role in finding an alternative location. And I don't think we should settle this. I don't think we've gotten the best deal we can for the people. And I'm not going to vote for
it. Okay. So we have, so everybody's voted or abstained or recused. We have 4 in favor. The 4 are Ian, Lou, Sharon, and me. We have 1 abstention is Kathy. We have 1 no, and we have 1 recuse, and that's Ed. Okay, so that's it. Passes 4 to 1 to 1 to 1. So that's the vote. All right. Next is Barad clearing 4 cattle walk. We do these in 2 parts. Ed, would you do the first one, please?
In the matter of the application of Barad clearing 4 cattle walk site plan, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-90-4-8.2, site plan approval. I have read the findings of determination of the board and call for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Number 8, cattle walk. Kathy, that's yours.
Okay, in the matter of the application of Barad clearing 8 cattle walk site plan, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-90-4-8.3, site plan approval for clearing with the conditions attached. I read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Ian, new singular at Daniels Hole Road.
In the matter of the application of new Singular Wireless, aka AT&T at Daniels Hole Road, site plan special permit, personal wireless service facility modification for resolution amending approval. I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
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 All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Kathy, wrap it up.
All right, very fitting. In the matter of the application of T-Mobile at Town Hall, site plan special permit, personal wireless service facility modification number 3 for Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-188-1-4 with conditions to modification. I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried.
All right.
All right, listen, it's a long, hard road, and I know we all have strong feelings, and I hope I haven't ruffled anyone's feathers too much. But we can now take a couple of weeks, although we do have something in the offing before we all don't see each other for a couple of weeks, and I'll leave it at that, and I'm hopeful to see us all live and in person. Don't forget that we do have continuing educational obligations. I'll try and pass along the things that I find as I bear down on December 31st and that obligation. Also, don't forget that we have the HR department's requirements that we all need to, with which we need to comply.
So Sam, you will, just to be clear, so you will pass on to us information about all of the above.
Yeah, I'll try and dig it all up, but you know,
Okay.
I'll look into it tomorrow too.
I'm sorry, Eric?
I was just going to say, I'll look into it tomorrow. I'll make sure the board gets everything.
That'd be great. You know, please make sure that that we all get, again, I know we've gotten it before, but and it'll save me time if I don't have to look for it. The HR stuff, you know, I don't want to say characterize it incorrectly, but the behavioral stuff. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give it short shrift or sound sarcastic.
Can I say one thing very quickly? And this is related to the fact that it's late, but I just want to thank the board for adding this meeting. As you know, it wasn't originally on the schedule, but it was really important to get to a backlog of applications, which was created, you know, in no small part by one application that we've reviewed multiple times the past few months. So I just want to thank everybody for agreeing for this meeting.
Okay, well, let me, on behalf of all of us, thank you guys, because it ain't easy. You know, you've been going along here without, you know, through leadership changes, shall we say, that never makes it easy to work in any office, and you've done an exemplary job. There will be new leadership at the top in the planning department come the new year. And, you know, we'll see the direction that things go. I'm optimistic, and I hope you all are too. And I do hope that we're all together in the new year. I'll say it that way. But that's above any of our pay grades to determine.
Right.
So,
well, thanks. Yeah, thanks to everybody, and happy holidays.
Likewise. Thank you.
I'll let Kathy have the last word. All right. So,
Wow. Yeah.
well, why not? Right?
That's all I
You know
have
what
to
I'll do,
say.
Kathy? Make the motion, if you would.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to do that. A motion to close the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned until January 12th. Have a great holiday.
Healthy.
And
Thank you.
see